A young man was escorted by two people to an ancient, solemn building. The blond man stated the final condition, his gaze stern, while the other sneered meaningfully. As soon as the young man stepped through the threshold, an invisible system interface appeared, adding 1 day to his lifespan. Similar notifications continuously appeared with each of his steps, turning the corridor into a life-extending path. Annoyed by the incessant notification sounds, he frowned, silently ordering the system to be quiet. His thoughts brought Chen Qi back to a month ago, when he had just transmigrated to the cultivation world and received the infinite lifespan system. Horrifying memories flooded back, replaying the scene of a Mo Xiu easily crushing an entire city, extinguishing all his intentions of living a peaceful life. Rejected by numerous sects due to his poor aptitude, he despaired until he found a unique opportunity to survive. The mission was clear: stay in this room for 1 hour. Use his yang energy to heal the young lady in exchange for the qualification to join the Immortal Sect. His train of thought was interrupted by the voice of the woman sitting at the dressing table. She was already waiting. Chen Qi confirmed his presence, but his eyes gleamed with surprise upon seeing that she did not resemble a severely ill person at all. With a powerful gesture, she motioned for Chen Qi to come closer. Despite some hesitation, Chen Qi obeyed and stepped towards her. She suddenly turned around, displaying her captivating beauty, while her gaze pierced straight into him. Posing an unspoken question, Chen Qi was completely overwhelmed, his face flushing as he stammered out an acknowledgement of her beauty. Immediately after the moment of embarrassment, a mischievous glint appeared in Chen Qi's eyes. He clasped his hands together with an expectant look about the unexpected benefits of this mission to shatter Chen Qi's confidence. The woman in red revealed her demonic nature with a long, slithering tongue and a challenging question. Chen Qi remained silent, without a single expression on his face. The demoness in red approached closely, using her presence to exert pressure. In a flash, Chen Qi pulled out a pair of scissors and snipped off the tip of her tongue. She was stunned, completely disbelieving what had just happened. Chen Qi smirked, asserting that his action was entirely intentional. The demoness in red shock quickly turned into extreme rage as she clutched her mouth. In stark contrast to his previous action, Chen Qi suddenly bowed deeply in a very formal apologetic posture. She was speechless, utterly bewildered by his inexplicable behavior. Chen Qi looked up, his eyes showing that he had realized the true danger of this mission, regaining the initiative. The demoness in red grabbed him, her eyes glowing red as she issued a deadly threat. She held up 2 fingers, offering 2 choices for his death. In response, Chen Qi also held up 2 fingers with a joyful expression, eagerly choosing the second option. His enthusiasm once again left her in a state of confusion. Without waiting for her reaction, Chen Qi began to undress, showing his readiness and urging her to act, completely losing control of the situation. The demoness in red screamed in utter confusion. Chen Qi looked directly at the demoness young lady, issuing a provocative challenge full of anticipation. He spread his arms wide, a challenging and inviting gesture, ready to accept the attack. Provoked, the demoness young lady roared, unleashing her true nature as purple demonic energy erupted around her. She swung her hand, launching a massive surge of demonic energy towards the motionless Chen Qi. The demonic energy enveloped Chen Qi, and an expression of extreme satisfaction appeared on the demoness young lady's face as she absorbed his life force. In complete contrast, Chen Qi yawned listlessly, gesturing for her to speed up. The demoness young lady's satisfaction shattered into extreme shock upon seeing Chen Qi still standing unharmed. Unable to accept the truth, she once again poured all her strength, determined to crush his defiance. A moment later, the demoness young lady stood panting beside Chen Qi, who lay slumped on the floor, believing him to be dead. Exhausted from expending energy, she turned away, intending to rest and digest the life force she had just seized. Suddenly, a soft snore echoed, startling her into alertness. She spun around abruptly, her gaze sweeping the room to find the source of the sound. Her astonishment turned into extreme bewilderment when she discovered that Chen Qi was not dead, but sound asleep. The scene abruptly shifted to a pink-haired woman posing in the dense forest. Rage flared, and the demoness young lady pointed at Chen Qi. Feeling deeply humiliated by his disregard, she unleashed an even more ferocious surge of demonic energy than before, aiming it directly at Chen Qi's sleeping body with the intention of torturing him to death. The demoness young lady unleashed her full power, releasing purple demonic energy that enveloped Chen Qi. But she was immediately stunned by his reaction. Instead of pain, Chen Qi stretched comfortably, provoking her to attack even harder. Humiliated, the demoness young lady gritted her teeth, determined to prove that her power would subdue him. After a period of exertion, the demonic energy dissipated, and the demoness young lady collapsed to the ground, exhausted, while Chen Qi still stood firm without a scratch. Chen Qi yawned listlessly, raising a hand to his mouth as if asking a sarcastic question. The demoness young lady snapped her head up, her eyes wide with disbelief and anger, unable to believe that her prey was completely unharmed, refusing to accept defeat. She let out an irrational roar and lunged towards Chen Qi, determined to attack again, to mock her futile efforts. Chen Qi exaggerated a look of fright, as if watching a play, her rage reaching its peak. She drew a short sword, her eyes blazing with the intention of dissecting him to uncover his secret. Her eyes were bloodshot, reflecting an uncontrollable frenzy. The rage subsided, leaving only exhaustion. The demoness young lady had to prop her sword against the ground to keep from collapsing, admitting defeat with a breath. Sensing the opportune moment, Chen Qi smirked, his eyes obscured by shadow, signaling that the tables had completely turned. As Chen Qi leisurely approached, the demoness young lady, now in the role of the weak, frantically retreated, fear evident on her face. Though exhausted, she still managed to raise her sword in a final defensive effort. A weak threat. Instead of a finishing blow, Chen Qi extended a contract, an unexpected request that completely stunned the demoness young lady. With a triumphant smile, he pointed to the terms on the paper, forcing her to accept the agreement to save her life. The demoness young lady presented the contract, her eyes filled with malicious smugness as she accepted Chen Qi's request to join the sect. She handed Chen Qi a token, explaining that it was the pass to enter Luo Shanzong. Chen Qi took the token, bowing politely to express his gratitude. As Chen Qi turned to leave, the demoness young lady's gaze followed him, filled with desire and calculation. A sinister smile appeared, and she secretly decided to capture Chen Qi later to refine him into a medicinal pill. Meanwhile, outside, two guards stood watch, one wondering about the situation inside. The man in the hat sneered, asserting that no man could escape the woman in red alive. The wooden door unexpectedly creaked open. The two guards froze, disbelieving their eyes when they saw the person who had just emerged. Chen Qi stepped out, his expression calm, informing the two that the mission was complete. Questioned about the young lady's whereabouts, the two guards looked skeptical and worried. Chen Qi held out a piece of paper, declaring that she was tired, and this was her handwriting. The two guards could only stare in utter confusion as Chen Qi leisurely walked past them. Half an hour later, Chen Qi entered the sect's main courtyard alone. His figure was small beneath the majestic main gate of Luo Shanzong. He looked up, his eyes gleaming with admiration for the splendor of the place. Chen Qi looked towards the Luo Shan sect with a satisfied expression, feeling that all risks had paid off. As he approached, two figures suddenly appeared, blocking his path and ordering him to stop. Two guards of the Luo Shan sect, one with a long topknot and one with blonde hair, arrogantly demanded he leave the sacred place. Chen Qi cupped his hands politely, smiling as he declared his intention to join the sect. The guard with the long topknot waved him off, warning that the recruitment period had ended and threatening him if he didn't leave. With a confident smile, Chen Qi held up the Twilight token as a challenge. He extended the token towards the two guards, leaving them stunned by the unexpected proof. A demon girl with horns and sharp fangs smiled brightly, wearing a golden bell around her neck. Chen Qi maintained his posture, his gaze questioning their hesitation regarding the token. The guard with the long topknot held the token in his hand, his expression confused as he couldn't deny it. Chen Qi pressed forward a step, his smile growing more confident as he inquired about his right to enter. After a moment of hesitation, the guard with the long topknot reluctantly nodded in approval. Granted permission, Chen Qi confidently strode forward, walking directly between the two guards. The guard with the long topknot suddenly raised his hand, blocking his path once more. He pointed towards a side path, signaling Chen Qi to take that route. Chen Qi turned back, decisively pointing towards the main gate, asserting that he would enter through the proper and honorable path. With a condescending look, the blonde-haired guard pointed to a side path, ordering Chen Qi to take that route. Chen Qi decisively agreed, showing his pragmatism that any path was fine as long as he could enter the sect. The two guards watched his retreating back with scornful smiles, mocking his naivety and the outdated value of the Twilight token. Chen Qi walked alone on the winding mountain path, heading deeper into the sect's territory. After walking for a while, he stopped, his face showing confusion as the path seemed to stretch endlessly. He paused, surprised to see something ahead. From above, Chen Qi's figure appeared small before a majestic red gate that emerged at the end of the path. He smiled contentedly, believing he had finally arrived at the right place. His joy vanished, replaced by shock and bewilderment as he read the sign on the gate, Old Remnant Institute. A gust of wind blew, carrying dust and dry leaves as he stepped into a desolate, dilapidated courtyard. He waved his hand in front of his face to clear the thick dust. Astonished by the filth of the place, he unexpectedly discovered the presence of others in the distance within the courtyard. 4 men with peculiar appearances were sitting and eating amidst the messy surroundings. Chen Qi politely approached the blindfolded swordsman, introducing himself as a new disciple and inquiring about the admission procedures. The 4 men continued eating, completely ignoring Chen Qi's presence. They eagerly competed to eat, one even setting a rule that whoever finished last would have to wash the dishes. Chen Qi stood silently, his gaze observing the dilapidated Old Remnant Institute before him. He regained his composure, cupping his hands politely to introduce himself to the 4 men who were eating. The red-haired brawler rudely waved his chopsticks, shooing Chen Qi away as if warding off evil. To assert his status, Chen Qi held up the Twilight token before them. The top-knot fighter snatched the token. Stunned to realize it was real, he looked at Chen Qi with pity, mocking the newcomer's naivety. Chen Qi was completely bewildered, not understanding why he was being treated like a fool. Surrounded by hostile attitudes, Chen Qi stood firm while the red-haired brawler continued to growl, telling him to leave. The blindfolded swordsman suddenly barked a silent command, forcing the red-haired brawler to be quiet. He began to explain their forgotten fate, how this place had not accepted disciples for 50 years. The red-haired brawler and the top-knot fighter bowed their heads, bitterness evident on their faces at the harsh reminder. The blindfolded swordsman stood up, decisively rejecting Chen Qi's presence to protect their tranquility. However, he paused, looking directly at Chen Qi and asking one final question to test the young man's resolve. Chen Qi raised a finger, cautiously asking again about the true nature of the Old Remnant Institute. The blindfolded swordsman raised 4 fingers, confirming that this place was one of the 4 great institutes of the Luoshan sect. Hearing this, Chen Qi broke into a radiant smile, placed his hand on his chest, and boldly declared his agreement without hesitation. Tian Yan solemnly declared that Chen Qi had become a disciple of the Old Remnant Institute. With everyone present being his masters, Chen Qi cupped his hands, bowing respectfully to accept his new role. The white-haired elder forcefully placed the empty bowl on the table, declaring he had finished eating. With his hands clasped behind his back, the elder casually walked away, leaving instructions for the others to wash the dishes. The red-haired brawler and the top-knot fighter also quickly stood up, trying to push the chore onto each other. Tian Yan growled, clearly annoyed by the undisciplined attitude of his fellow disciples. Chen Qi turned to Tian Yan, his eyes seemingly awaiting his first task. Tian Yan pointed towards the messy dining table, signaling Chen Qi to wash all the dishes. Chen Qi paused for a moment, sweat trickling down his temples as he saw the task before him. As he walked away, Tian Yan gave another command, instructing Chen Qi to sweep the entire courtyard. Chen Qi stood speechless before a mountain of dirty dishes, inwardly accepting his new role as a chore disciple. A fleeting image appeared of a red-horned demoness holding a mass of dark energy, her gaze piercing through the frame. Inside the house, the top-knot fighter questioned Tian Yan about the decision to accept Chen Qi. Tian Yan explained that as long as there was a new arrival, the old Remnant Institute still had a faint glimmer of hope. The red-haired brawler crossed his arms, sternly reminding them of the threats from external forces lurking around them. Tian Yan looked out the window, where Chen Qi was diligently sweeping the courtyard, then said in a pragmatic tone that at least they needed someone to handle the aftermath. A month later, Chen Qi was still meditating with a weak cultivation aura, showing no progress. From a distance, the top-knot fighter showed impatience with Tian Yan regarding the new disciple's stagnation. Tian Yan slammed the table in frustration, declaring he would expel Chen Qi for this unacceptable failure. Watching Tian Yan leave, the red-haired brawler scoffed that with that physique, Chen Qi wouldn't even live as long as them. Hearing everything, Chen Qi opened his eyes, his face filled with disappointment and confusion at his own weakness. Tian Yan decisively called Chen Qi's name, interrupting his train of thought. Chen Qi reflexively cupped his hands in a salute, but Tian Yan raised a hand to stop him, ordering him not to call him master anymore. He was bewildered, not understanding how he should address the other person. In a humorous moment, Tian Yan shouted, demanding Chen Qi call him brother, leaving him speechless. Tian Yan motioned for Chen Qi to follow, declaring he would personally send him off. An energetic shattering effect appeared as Tian Yan led Chen Qi away, showing his determination. As they approached the gate, a group of strangers from the enforcement hall stood blocking the way, clearly there to cause trouble. The top-knot fighter recognized the leader, identifying him as Zhao Cheng. An unrelated white-haired woman appeared for a brief moment, winking at the viewer. Zhao Cheng crossed his arms, speaking provocatively, disparaging the existence of the old Remnant Institute as a waste of resources. The red-haired brawler growled, stepping forward to confront him, reminding Zhao Cheng of his status and the respect due to elders. Zhao Cheng stood opposite Tian Yan's group, uttering contemptuous remarks about their appearance and their presence at the Luoxian sect. The red-haired man pointed at Zhao Cheng, coldly declaring that his purpose of humiliation had been achieved and demanding he leave. Zhao Cheng smirked provocatively, clearly indicating his intention not to leave and to continue causing trouble. With an arrogant attitude, Zhao Cheng pointed and ordered the members of the old Remnant Institute to crawl between his legs as a final threat. Tian Yan gritted his teeth, anger erupting upon hearing Zhao Cheng's unforgivable insult. Zhao Cheng spread his arms in defiance, asserting his power in the face of the old Remnant Institute group's helplessness. A sudden, thunderous slap landed directly on Zhao Cheng's face, leaving him stunned. Chen Qi stood firm, his eyes blazing with fury, showing his indignation that his masters had been insulted. Zhao Cheng clutched his cheek, turning back with a bewildered and pained expression, unable to believe what had just happened. Tian Yan was stunned, while the red-haired man and the top-knot-haired man were speechless in the middle of their meal at Chen Qi's actions. Once the shock passed, Zhao Cheng roared in anger, demanding to know the identity of his attacker. Chen Qi confidently pointed his thumb at his chest, boldly declaring himself the new disciple of the old Remnant Institute. Zhao Cheng looked at Chen Qi with disdain and skepticism, while Tian Yan observed from behind. With a complex expression, the red-haired man clutched his head in despair. Believing Chen Qi's recklessness would bring disaster, Chen Qi did not flinch, confronting Zhao Cheng directly, declaring he would not tolerate anyone insulting his masters. Tian Yan placed a hand on Chen Qi's shoulder, Trying to stop him before the situation spiraled out of control, Zhao Cheng roared a command, his eyes filled with malice. Determined not to let his humiliator leave, he pointed directly at Chen Qi's face, using his authority to force him to kneel and confess his wrongdoing. A second thunderous slap answered the threat, distorting Zhao Cheng's face and splattering blood. Zhao Cheng clutched his cheek, his expression shifting from astonishment to disbelief. Facing Chen Qi's cold gaze, the scene abruptly shifted to a white-haired woman, smiling, holding a mysterious wooden box. Losing all patience, Zhao Cheng roared furiously and lunged forward, determined to use force to finish off his opponent. From behind, Tianyan let out a desperate shout. Trying to stop the reckless attack, Chen Qi raised his hand, blocking Zhao Cheng's murderous punch. In a fiery moment of impact, although the blow was blocked, the impact force still made Chen Qi strain to endure it. A bleeding wound appearing on his chest, Tianyan could only call out Chen Qi's name in horror as he was sent flying backward by the force of the punch. After knocking back his opponent, Zhao Cheng stood upright, pointing arrogantly to assert his authority. The red-haired man confronted Zhao Cheng, questioning his cruel actions. Zhao Cheng responded to the questioning with a contemptuous smile, scoffing at the notion of conscience. Still resentful, Zhao Cheng uttered a final insult, demanding that the masters of the Old Remnant Institute endure humiliation. Zhao Cheng's bruised face contorted in anger, unable to swallow the humiliation. Suddenly, his angry expression turned into extreme horror, as if he had just seen something impossible. To protect his master's honor, Chen Qi strained and bit down hard on Zhao Cheng's leg. From a distance, Tianyan was shocked to see Chen Qi still alive after the previous attack. Enraged by the defiance, Zhao Cheng gathered a purple energy sphere in his hand. Determined to finish off Chen Qi, Tianyan lunged forward in a desperate attempt to stop the fatal attack. Zhao Cheng unleashed an energy palm strike onto Chen Qi's chest, an attack that sent blood splattering. Believing his opponent was dead, Zhao Cheng stood there with a smug expression, dismissively dusting off his hands. Helplessly watching, Tianyan gritted his teeth, rage flaring in his eyes, unable to bear it any longer. The red-haired man sprang to his feet, declaring his intention to avenge Chen Qi. Zhao Cheng mocked the remaining members of the Old Remnant Institute, arrogantly asserting his authority. He placed his foot on Chen Qi's back like a trophy, turning to face the others. Suddenly, Zhao Cheng let out a horrified scream, his body convulsing in an unknown pain. From behind, Chen Qi surged up, one hand gripping Zhao Cheng's head tightly as his soul-protecting item shattered. Tianyan and the red-haired man were stunned by the unbelievable turn of events. The top-knot-haired man and the white-haired elder were also speechless. Not understanding what was happening, Chen Qi held Zhao Cheng tightly, his eyes burning with determination, reaffirming his vow of protection. Tianyan looked at Chen Qi, astonishment and a new glimmer of hope evident on his face. Zhao Cheng's face contorted in pain and shock, both screaming for his opponent to release his cultivation foundation and not understanding why he was still alive. Despite the bruises on his face, Chen Qi still held his opponent tightly, his voice resolute as he ordered Zhao Cheng to apologize to his masters. From a distance, Tianyan and the red-haired man witnessed Chen Qi forcing Zhao Cheng to publicly admit his mistake and humble himself in humiliation. After the apology was made, Chen Qi released his grip, collapsing, exhausted onto a rock as Zhao Cheng staggered to his feet, his eyes seething with humiliation, overwhelmed by rage. Zhao Cheng summoned a purple energy sword, lunging towards Chen Qi with clear intent to kill. To protect Chen Qi, Tianyan moved like a blur, blocking the deadly attack with a blazing golden fire shield. With a single powerful movement, Tianyan unleashed a torrent of fiery energy, sending Zhao Cheng flying backward across the courtyard. Zhao Cheng fell to the ground in a cloud of dust, utterly defeated, while his two disciples rushed over in a panic. The two disciples hastily helped their dazed master, who uttered threats of retaliation before being led away. Tianyan silently watched them retreat. The task completed, while Zhao Cheng's parting words indicated he urgently needed treatment for his humiliating injuries. Returning to his fellow disciples, Chen Qi received a friendly pat on the shoulder from the red-haired man, a gesture celebrating their shared victory. Chen Qi turned to Tianyan, his eyes inquiring about the previous order to leave. Seeking confirmation of his position, the master with the distinctive red mustache turned to Tianyan, his expression showing deep admiration for the young man's unyielding spirit. The top-knot-haired man smiled in approval, declaring that Chen Qi's daring technique was precisely the spirit their institute needed. Tianyan looked at Chen Qi with a final reassuring gaze, officially retracting the previous order and welcoming him to stay as a true member. A wave of relief and indescribable joy was evident on Chen Qi's bruised face. His reckless gamble had finally brought him a place to belong. Chen Qi clutched his chest, his face contorted in persistent pain even as his body healed itself. A fleeting image of a woman in a wedding dress with blue-gray hair appeared and then vanished. Half a month later, at the peaceful grounds of the Old Remnant Institute, Chen Qi sat at the dining table with Tianyan, the red-haired man, and the white-haired elder. An unusually normal meal. With a frustrated expression, Chen Qi poked at his rice bowl, his impatience at not being able to cultivate clearly visible on his face. Gathering all his resolve, Chen Qi looked directly at his masters, preparing to speak and ask for guidance. Tianyan immediately cut him off with a sharp glare, a silent command, forcing Chen Qi to shut up. Chen Qi froze, completely bewildered by his master's drastic reaction. The red-mustached master and the top-knot-haired man exchanged glances, discussing Chen Qi's eagerness. Tianyan turned and snapped at the two of them, a protective act to prevent them from revealing the harsh truth. With a sad expression, the top-knot-haired man acknowledged Chen Qi's enthusiasm, but also hinted at their helplessness. The white-haired elder stood up, casually pointing at the pile of dirty dishes, signaling to the red-mustached master and the top-knot-haired man that it was their turn to clean. Chen Qi observed everything, his eyes glinting as he noticed the top-knot-haired man's hesitation. A new plan began to form. A moment later, Chen Qi sought out the top-knot-haired man, who was sitting alone in the courtyard. The top-knot-haired man explained decisively but regretfully that they could not teach him to cultivate, completely changing his demeanor. Chen Qi smiled shrewdly, beginning to ask about the glorious past of the Old Remnant Institute. Second Master began telling Chen Qi about the glorious past of Lao Kan Yuan, emphasizing that they had once saved Duo Xianzong from the brink of destruction. Chen Qi appeared skeptical, wondering how such a powerful sect could have almost been annihilated. Second Master explained that it was a long and secret story, revealing that Lao Kan Yuan itself had stood firm when the sect was besieged by 4 major forces. Chen Qi deduced excitedly, concluding that this meant all 4 masters were extremely formidable cultivators. Second Master smiled, confirming proudly. Second Master looked towards Third Master, who was sweeping the courtyard, hinting at one of those heroes with fiery eyes. Second Master recounted the glorious past of Third Master, whose legs once shook heaven and earth, spreading terror among countless enemies. Chen Qi pointed up, his face bewildered, pointing out a clear contradiction in the narrative, as he knew Third Master only had 1 leg. The stream of memories erupted into a fierce battle, where Third Master unleashed a powerful kick. Second Master displayed mighty fist techniques, and Tianyan, with glowing eyes, demonstrated invincible power. Back in reality, Chen Qi's face grew serious, posing a painful question about why the heroes of yesteryear were now crippled. Second Master extended his severed arm, revealing the painful truth that the cultivation technique they practiced was a flawed forbidden art. Chen Qi was stunned upon hearing the 2 words, forbidden art. Second Master explained bitterly that they had no other choice but to practice the forbidden art to save the sect, and the price was their current miserable state. Chen Qi questioned with indignation, not understanding why those who had sacrificed so much were treated so poorly by the sect. Second Master sadly explained that practicing forbidden arts went against the righteous path, which was the core reason they were ostracized. A bold determination flashed in Chen Qi's eyes. He looked directly at Second Master and made an unbelievable request. He wanted to learn that forbidden art. Second Master reacted with incredible anger at Chen Qi's reckless request. With a serious expression, Second Master explained that practicing forbidden arts would destroy the body and deplete lifespan, a price they themselves were paying. Chen Qi's eyes lit up strangely, realizing that shortening his lifespan was the perfect solution for his situation. Turning away decisively, Second Master flatly refused, emphasizing that Tianyan would never agree. Undeterred, Chen Qi called out with unwavering determination. Second Master stopped, glancing back with a look of both annoyance and pity as he delivered a final warning. Chen Qi listened, his expression shifting from determined to bewildered upon learning of the existence of a fourth master. With a cruel tone, Second Master revealed that Fourth Master was intellectually disabled. Chen Qi processed the information with a skeptical expression, clearly unconvinced by the harsh remark. Watching Second Master leave, Chen Qi's resolve grew even stronger. If he lacked talent, forbidden arts were his only path. As the other masters all refused, Chen Qi clenched his fists and began a new journey with a clear goal. He strode towards another area of the institute, determined to find Fourth Master at all costs. From the other side of a tranquil lake, Chen Qi saw the white-haired elder standing motionless by the shore. As he approached, Chen Qi noticed a no swimming sign, a strange detail next to the master who stood as still as a statue. Chen Qi bowed in salute, his eyes carefully observing Fourth Master. Noticing his calm demeanor was completely contrary to the previous description. Standing before the white-haired elder, Chen Qi respectfully asked why the master was standing there. Fourth Master suddenly spoke with a solemn expression, as if he had just made a significant discovery. Chen Qi turned around, his gaze wary and questioning at the master's unusual behavior. Fourth Master declared an obvious truth with an extremely profound expression, as if imparting a cosmic secret. Chen Qi was momentarily speechless, his forehead beaded with sweat. Unable to comprehend the master's logic, Fourth Master calmly probed the true intentions of the young man who had sought him out. Regaining his composure, Chen Qi admitted his purpose, his eyes gleaming with hope that Fourth Master had guessed it. Fourth Master looked smug, asserting that his guess was perfectly accurate without revealing what it was. Chen Qi gave a forced laugh, trying to probe what this eccentric master had truly guessed. Without further ado, Chen Qi cupped his hands and bowed, earnestly pleading to be taught the forbidden art. Instead of answering, Fourth Master asked an unrelated question in return, continuing his test of wisdom. Realizing this was a test, Chen Qi began to flatter skillfully, praising the wisdom hidden behind Fourth Master's seemingly insane exterior. Seemingly unmoved by the praise, Fourth Master turned his back and walked away. Uttering a cryptic warning, Chen Qi frantically called out. Not wanting to let his only chance slip away, he cupped his hands respectfully, offering a final, insightful remark about Fourth Master's profound silence. Unexpectedly, Fourth Master turned back with a satisfied smile. Finally convinced by Chen Qi's insight, Chen Qi cupped his hands, a contented smile on his face. Realizing that wisdom was the key to conquering this master, Chen Qi cupped his hands, using a fawning gaze to beg Fourth Master to teach him the forbidden art. Fourth Master gave a decisive command, pointing towards the lake and ordering Chen Qi to jump in. Chen Qi sternly pointed at the no swimming sign, trying to use common rules to refute the master's bizarre command. Fourth Master explained that the forbidden art energy hidden in the lake water would greatly advance cultivation. Chen Qi appeared skeptical of the master's unbelievable explanation. Fourth Master pointed directly at Chen Qi's face, offering a contradictory encouragement to test his will. The master's illogical encouragement completely bewildered Chen Qi, who broke out in a sweat, unsure of what to do. After giving the instructions, Fourth Master turned his back and walked away, leaving Chen Qi alone to face the challenge. Watching the masters retreating back, Chen Qi clenched his fists, his eyes gleaming with iron determination. He cautiously stepped into the lake, and a system interface immediately appeared, indicating that his lifespan was being depleted. Standing amidst the corrosive water, Chen Qi clearly felt the dangerous forbidden art energy, yet remained steadfast thanks to his system. Despite his lifespan being drained, he felt his physical strength increasing, confirming that the master's method was truly effective. Meanwhile, two figures in black cloaks soared through the air, landing on the roof of Lao Can Yuan. The one in the lead, a silver-haired assassin, looked around to ascertain their location. The blindfolded assassin with an X-shaped scar on his cheek flashed a sinister smile, confirming to his accomplice that this was their target. To avoid detection, both quickly glided across the rooftops, moving deeper into the forbidden area. The hooded assassin spotted Chen Qi in the middle of the lake and immediately signaled his leader. The scarred assassin, Chen Qi, remained with his eyes closed in cultivation, appearing completely unaware of the two intruders watching him from the shore, confident in his advantage. The scarred assassin lunged across the water, deciding to capture the target alive himself. As the scarred assassin pounced, Chen Qi unexpectedly opened his eyes and grabbed his wrist, completely stunning the attacker. Blocked. The scarred assassin squeezed Chen Qi's hand, his eyes threatening a silent command for him to be quiet. Chen Qi ignored the threat, holding his enemy tightly, and the atmosphere grew tense. With a swift motion, Chen Qi swung his hand, splashing a handful of lake water directly onto the scarred assassin's face. The scarred assassin initially scoffed at the weak act of resistance, disdaining being splashed with water. Immediately, his facial skin began to bubble and melt as if corroded by acid, extreme pain evident on his face. The lake water continued to corrode the scarred assassin's hand as well, making him writhe in agony. He staggered back, screaming, while the hooded assassin could only watch from afar in horror, clutching his disintegrating face. The scarred assassin realized the deadly danger of the lake water, giving his opponent no chance to escape. Chen Qi lunged forward with a confident smile, determined to end the confrontation. He grabbed the scarred assassin's leg, using his strength to pull him tumbling into the water from beneath the surface. Chen Qi held the scarred assassin tightly, submerging him in the deadly water, slowly sinking in the corrosive water. The scarred assassin could only reach out his hand in despair before being completely submerged. Submerged in the magical lake, the scarred assassin surfaced, his disintegrating arm reaching out for help in desperation. Chen Qi coldly pushed his head back down, an act asserting absolute dominance. Standing on the shore, the hooded assassin froze, his eyes wide with horror as he realized the deadly nature of the lake. Underwater, the scarred assassin screamed silently, his flesh disintegrating. Casting a final pleading look towards his accomplice, Chen Qi turned to look at the hooded assassin with a provocative smile, challenging him to intervene. The hooded assassin was speechless, helplessly watching his comrade being tormented. Chen Qi turned back, placing his hand on the scarred assassin's head, a silent declaration that there would be no salvation. With his skull exposed, the scarred assassin showed extreme horror, begging for his life, crushing all hope. Chen Qi forcefully submerged the enemy completely to the bottom of the lake. To avenge his comrade, the hooded assassin roared in anger and charged to attack. Chen Qi took a full dark energy blow to the chest, being pushed back on the water's surface, hovering in the air. The hooded assassin gathered an energy orb, confident that the safe distance would ensure his victory. Standing firm in the lake, Chen Qi coughed a few times, but his resolute gaze showed his body was much stronger. Giving his opponent no time to rest, the hooded assassin unleashed another deadly stream of energy towards Chen Qi. To evade the attack, Chen Qi quickly dove into the protective water. The hooded assassin hovered over the lake's surface, observing the calm water, waiting for his prey to emerge. Beneath the surface, a mischievous water figure with sparkling eyes formed beside Chen Qi. Standing on the shore, the hooded assassin launched an energy attack towards Chen Qi, who easily used the lake water to form a shield to block it. The hooded assassin froze, realizing his attack had been completely neutralized. He roared in despair and launched another attack, but Chen Qi maintained a safe distance in the lake. Steam rose from the hooded assassin's gloves, revealing the terrifying corrosive power of the forbidden lake water. Enraged, he pointed at Chen Qi, letting out a silent challenge, demanding him to come ashore for a decisive battle. Chen Qi responded with a sneer, provocatively waving the hooded assassin into the water. Suddenly, Chen Qi shot out a thin whip from his hand, tightly coiling around the hooded assassin with a triumphant expression. He strained and pulled hard, trying to drag the enemy into the lake, where he held the advantage. Chen Qi put all his strength into the whip, determined to end the fight. However, the hooded assassin rooted himself in place, straining against the pull with astonishing strength. With a roar, the hooded assassin began to pull back, demonstrating superior physical strength. Chen Qi lost his footing, being dragged uncontrollably across the water towards the shore. The hooded assassin gave one final powerful tug, lifting Chen Qi out of the water and throwing him to the ground. Unsteady on dry land, Chen Qi looked at his opponent with a tense expression, realizing he had lost his greatest advantage. With a cruel smile, the hooded assassin approached, ready to finish off Chen Qi now that he was on his territory. Cornered, Chen Qi came up with a crazy idea of directly absorbing the power of the lake water. Without hesitation, he plunged his face in and frantically drank the forbidden water. From the shore, the hooded assassin watched the rippling lake surface with a completely bewildered expression. Chen Qi sprang up, screaming in pain as destructive energy spread throughout his body. His face contorted as cold system notifications appeared, confirming he was paying with his own lifespan. Despite the burning pain from within, he gritted his teeth and endured, feeling power rising. With a will to survive, he submerged himself in the water again to continue the painful transformation process. Witnessing his opponent's self-destructive act, the hooded assassin believed Chen Qi had completely lost his mind. He yanked the whip, pulling Chen Qi, who was hovering on the water's surface, flying towards the shore. Chen Qi was thrown hard onto the ground, completely losing the advantage from the lake water, giving his opponent no second to breathe. The hooded assassin gathered a dark purple demonic energy orb, charging forward to deliver the finishing blow. Chen Qi raised his hand just in time. A brilliant golden energy shield unexpectedly formed, blocking the attack. The hooded assassin froze, unable to believe his eyes as his full power attack was easily blocked. Chen Qi tensed. A dazzling golden aura erupted from his body, exuding an overwhelming presence. The hooded assassin recognized that aura, a manifestation of the legendary body refinement realm. His confidence completely vanished, replaced by extreme astonishment and doubt at the unknown person's transformation. The hooded assassin charged with a finishing blow. A silent death command issued. Chen Qi, his entire body glowing with golden aura, roared a challenge and unleashed a counterpunch. His fist, enveloped in golden energy, shot straight towards the astonished hooded assassin's face. The hooded assassin took the full punch, blood splattering, his face contorted in pain and shock. The scene shifted to an outdoor meal, where the fourth master was humorously lecturing the other masters. Tianyan suddenly noticed Chen Qi's absence and asked about his whereabouts. The red-bearded master also wondered, confirming that Chen Qi was usually very punctual for meals. The second master shook his head, also not seeing any trace of the disciple. The fourth master interrupted Tianyan, drawing everyone's attention to himself. With a completely nonchalant expression, the fourth master pointed towards the backyard and revealed that Chen Qi was cultivating in the lake. Tianyan froze, muttering about Chen Qi's mediocre talent and the futility of such cultivation. The group of masters sprang to their feet, their expressions changing from surprise to extreme horror. The second master, with a serious gaze, explained that the water in that lake was extremely poisonous, capable of stripping flesh from bone. Without a second's hesitation, all three masters rushed at full speed towards the lake. Fearing the worst had happened, Tianyan ran in despair, his face full of regret and self-reproach for not being more patient with him. By the shore of the forbidden lake, the masters discovered the hooded assassin's corpse and rushed over. The third master checked the pulse and shook his head, confirming to the others that the person lying there was dead. believing it was Chen Qi. Tian Yan knelt, his trembling hand resting on the corpse's shoulder, his face filled with regret and pain. Tian Yan flipped back the hood, and everyone was stunned to realize it wasn't Chen Qi, but a stranger. Suddenly, the lake water behind them splashed as a figure emerged. Tian Yan, the third master, and the second master spun around, their faces utterly astonished by the unexpected sight. From underwater, Chen Qi cheerfully waved, calling out to his masters. The second master and the red-bearded master squinted in disbelief, unable to believe what they were seeing. The third master pointed at Chen Qi, stammering to ask why he was in that deadly lake. Chen Qi smiled proudly, explaining that the fourth master had instructed him and that his cultivation had yielded clear results. Tian Yan, sweating profusely, asked with a worried tone if Chen Qi felt any discomfort. To demonstrate, Chen Qi casually waved his hand and declared that he was not only fine, but had also drunk a lot of the lake water. Hearing this, Tian Yan and the third master froze, their faces horrified as if they had just heard something unbelievable. Tian Yan regained his composure, pointed at the hooded assassin's corpse, and questioned Chen Qi about his fate. Still standing in the middle of the lake, Chen Qi casually confirmed that he had killed that person. The second master looked skeptical, dismissing Chen Qi's boast about killing a Mo sect disciple. Standing on the water's surface, Chen Qi faced the red-bearded master's stern warning about the enemy's danger. Chen Qi declared dramatically, almost theatrically, that he was the one who acted. To prove it, Chen Qi provoked, inviting the second master to test his strength. With a mischievous smile, Chen Qi feigned worry to tease the master. The second master smugly dismissed it, boasting about his extensive combat experience. Without a word of warning, Chen Qi lunged forward at astonishing speed, launching a direct attack at the second master. An invisible force knocked the second master backward, tearing his clothes in astonishment. Tian Yan and the third master stood frozen, unable to believe what they had just witnessed. Amidst the rubble, the second master knelt, utterly bewildered by the swift defeat. Chen Qi gestured wildly, nonchalantly explaining the situation as if it were a minor matter. Still in shock, the second master turned to Tian Yan, seeking a reasonable explanation. Tian Yan pondered, hypothesizing that Chen Qi possessed a special physique far beyond the ordinary. The red-bearded master chimed in, speculating about a legendary physique. Chen Qi looked bewildered, completely confused by the profound terminology the masters were discussing. Tian Yan raised a finger, explaining Chen Qi's special physique, a pure yang state that prevented him from approaching women. With an eager expression, Chen Qi turned to the second master, implying a question of whether he could begin cultivation immediately. Chen Qi secretly gloated, considering the master's misunderstanding an advantage for his cultivation path. Tian Yan crossed his arms, reluctantly agreeing to let Chen Qi learn forbidden arts, but issuing a stern warning about their dangers. The second master continued, pointing to emphasize the existing threat the old remnant institute faced from both orthodox sects and Mozong. Chen Qi looked confused, gesturing with his hand, requesting a clearer explanation as to why Mozong targeted them. The red-bearded master stepped forward, his expression hardening as he revealed that Mozong's target was the institute's forbidden arts. Still skeptical, Chen Qi questioned the absurdity of the enemy wanting to learn self-harming cultivation methods. Faced with the harsh truth explained by the masters, Chen Qi bowed his head, hand on his forehead, to absorb the weight of responsibility. Regaining his composure, Chen Qi clasped his hands in a resolute stance, showing his understanding and determination. 3 days later, Chen Qi unleashed a chaotic surge of energy, beginning to practice his first forbidden art. His finger shattered in a painful flash, the immediate consequence of using forbidden power. He stared in astonishment at his crushed finger, blood gushing out, feeling the price of forbidden arts for the first time. The wound stopped bleeding and dissolved into a strange red smoke, rising from his finger. Looking at his fully regenerated finger, Chen Qi smiled confidently, now deeply understanding the master's sacrifice. Chen Qi stepped forward, covering his nose from the foul smell emanating from the bucket the second master was carrying. The second master explained with a disgusted look that he was about to discard the fourth master's terrible cooking, then changed the subject to ask about Chen Qi's cultivation progress. Chen Qi confidently gestured, affirming that he had made significant progress. The second master sneered, showing skepticism at the disciple's complacency after a short period of cultivation. Despite the skepticism, Chen Qi still gave a thumbs up, his face beaming as he affirmed his progress. With a provocative smile, the second master challenged Chen Qi to attack to prove his strength. Chen Qi's confidence momentarily turned into a comically worried expression. The second master mocked Chen Qi's hesitation, asserting that this time he was prepared and would not be easily defeated. Without further hesitation, Chen Qi unleashed a palm strike, a brilliant blue energy sphere gathering in his palm. The attack struck the second master's back with unexpected force. The second master was sent flying forward, the wooden bucket soaring into the air in an arc. He crashed into a red pillar at the gate, the impact shaking the entire doorframe. Just then, Zhao Cheng and his subordinates appeared at the gate, pointing and jeering. The bucket, hovering in the air, fell straight down, landing squarely on Zhao Cheng's head, spilling its foul, greenish liquid all over him. Chen Qi and the second master were both stunned, astonished by the completely unexpected outcome. Zhao Cheng's subordinates recoiled in horror, some dry heaving, others using fans to cover their noses from the pungent stench. Zhao Cheng, covered in the green liquid, roared an angry question about who had caused this. Unable to bear it, he collapsed to the ground and vomited a puddle of rainbow-colored liquid. With eyes blazing, Zhao Cheng snarled a threat that those responsible would pay a heavy price. Bai Yunfei, his subordinate, stood beside him and declared that he would not let those who caused this incident off lightly. He turned to face Chen Qi and the second master, questioning whether their recent action was accidental or intentional. Chen Qi flashed a mischievous smile, raised his hand, and casually admitted it was just an accident. Provoked by Chen Qi's attitude, Bai Yunfei gritted his teeth, warning that he was courting death. He declared, as a representative of the enforcement hall, ordering Chen Qi to follow him to await judgment. To protect his disciple, the second master stepped forward to shield Chen Qi, confronting Bai Yunfei directly. Bai Yunfei sneered, mocking a disabled person like the second master for daring to challenge him. Insulted, the second master tensed, releasing a powerful blue energy surge, ready to retaliate. The confrontation was interrupted by the appearance of Zhao Jing, who descended from the sky at an astonishing speed. Zhao Jing, the hall master of the enforcement hall, landed with an authoritative posture. The second master recognized the newcomer as Hall Master Zhao Jing, a formidable opponent. Zhao Jing called the second master by his old title, Divine Fist, and reprimanded him for breaking the rules by taking in a disciple. With his authority, Zhao Jing ordered the second master to hand over Chen Qi immediately. The second master firmly refused Zhao Jing's demand with a challenging glare. Zhao Jing growled, his eyes blazing, declaring he would use force to punish the disobedience. To enforce the order, Bai Yunfei stepped forward, pointing at Chen Qi and declaring he would take him away. Bai Yunfei approached closely, provocatively pointing a finger at the second master, mocking his helplessness. Humiliated to his limit, the second master unleashed a powerful kick to Bai Yunfei's abdomen. Bai Yunfei was sent flying in astonishment, causing Zhao Jing to glare furiously at the audacious act. The second master stood tall, proudly declaring that he used his feet, not his hands. A defiant retort to the title of Divine Fist, Zhao Jing's rage erupted, a brilliant golden energy surge enveloping him as he declared that the old Remnant Institute had crossed the line. Zhao Jing charged with overwhelming power, forcing the second master to raise his remaining arm and create an energy shield to defend. Though pushed back, the second master gritted his teeth, stubbornly bracing himself against the opponent's attack. Zhao Jing roared, questioning whether the second master's sacrifice for an ordinary person like Chen Qi was worth it. With a decisive shout, The second master affirmed that his sacrifice was entirely worthwhile. Under Chen Qi's gaze, immediately, Tian Yan, the third master, and the other masters of the Old Remnant Institute appeared simultaneously, shouting their affirmations in unison, demonstrating unshakable unity. Chen Qi's eyes welled up, his heart deeply moved by the affection and protection of his masters. Witnessing the scene, Zhao Jing roared, calling all of them a bunch of madmen risking their lives for others. Determined to eliminate the threat, Zhao Jing condensed energy in his hand, creating a brilliant golden pagoda, ready to flatten the Old Remnant Institute. To destroy the Old Remnant Institute, Zhao Jing summoned a brilliant golden energy pagoda that descended directly upon the second master. Bai Yunfei smirked complacently, believing this was the end for those who dared to oppose the enforcement hall. The red-bearded master and the fourth master stood side by side, their expressions grave as they observed the perilous situation. Tian Yan narrowed his eyes behind his blindfold, realizing that Zhao Jing was using this attack to test the master's limits. Despite the pressure, the second master tensed, gathering a fierce blue energy surge into his remaining left arm to counterattack. With a single punch, the second master's blue energy fist collided with and shattered the golden pagoda into countless fragments. Bai Yunfei's complacent expression vanished, replaced by extreme horror as he witnessed his side's divine artifact being easily destroyed. Chen Qi looked at his master with sparkling eyes full of admiration for the extraordinary power he had just witnessed. Zhao Jing was stunned, unable to believe that the second master could still use the forbidden technique of Beidou Divine Fist in his crippled state. The second master stood tall, his gaze sharp as a dagger piercing Zhao Jing, a silent warning that he would not hesitate to unleash a second punch. Zhao Jing regained his composure, pointed at Chen Qi, and loudly claimed that he was not an official disciple to justify his actions. Zhao Jing's accusation enraged the second master, causing him to roar a challenge, ready to fight to the end, to protect his disciple. A gray-haired elder of the enforcement hall stepped out, his tone full of mockery, doubting the second master's ability to use the forbidden technique again. Tian Yan turned, questioning the true intentions of Zhao Jing and his faction. The enforcement hall elder made a cunning proposal, forcing Chen Qi to fight Bai Yunfei and Zhao Cheng to earn his disciple status. The second master immediately protested, pointing out the blatant unfairness of the proposal when Chen Qi had only joined a few days ago. The enforcement hall elder sneered, dismissing all objections about unfairness with a condescending attitude. Tian Yan vehemently objected, arguing that letting Chen Qi fight was no different from pushing him to his death, while the second master stood behind him in support. Faced with the resistance, the enforcement hall elder pointed directly, issuing a brutal threat to personally destroy the entire Old Remnant Institute. Confronted with the intimidation, Tian Yan clenched his fist, his eyes resolute as he declared that the Old Remnant Institute was not afraid of a fight. The enforcement hall elder turned his back and walked away with a look of disdain, as if their fate was sealed. As the enforcement hall elder was about to leave, Chen Qi unexpectedly called out to him. Startled by the call, the enforcement hall elder turned his head with an annoyed and arrogant gaze. Chen Qi faced him, flashing a confident smile, ready to make a proposal. Realizing his disciple's intention, Tian Yan frantically spoke up to dissuade Chen Qi. Despite his master's dissuasion, Chen Qi placed his hand on his chest, firmly declaring his desire to follow the rules to earn official disciple status. The enforcement hall elder scoffed, viewing Chen Qi's decision as an act of courting death. Seizing the opportunity, Zhao Cheng stepped forward, bowing to request a duel with Chen Qi to settle old grievances. The match began, and Zhao Cheng immediately charged to attack. But Chen Qi promptly activated his cultivation for defense. With superior experience, Zhao Cheng unleashed a devastating kick, slamming Chen Qi to the ground and shattering the tiles. Lying amidst the rubble, Chen Qi realized his weakness in practical combat experience when facing Zhao Cheng. Despite having the upper hand, Zhao Cheng still roared in anger, his hand emitting energy, indicating that he too had suffered a minor loss. The Enforcement Hall elder clenched his fist. His eyes filled with contempt and challenge as he doubted the second master's strength. Tian Yan faced the elder, questioning the true purpose of the Enforcement Hall. With a smug smile, the Enforcement Hall elder presented his condition: a duel for Chen Qi to earn his standing in the sect. The second master stepped forward slightly, his face clearly showing displeasure, pointing out the blatant injustice of the offer. The Enforcement Hall elder sneered at their resistance, dismissing their notion of fairness as a childish plea. Tian Yan raised his hand in protest, urgently declaring that the offer was nothing short of a death sentence for Chen Qi. Dropping all pretense, the Enforcement Hall elder pointed threateningly, declaring he would bring the wrath of the sect elders to level the old Cripples Institute. Unfazed by the threat, Tian Yan's jaw tightened, signaling that the old Cripples Institute would not back down. Believing he had gained the upper hand, the Enforcement Hall elder turned his back disdainfully, deeming their defiance meaningless. A resolute voice rang out as Chen Qi stepped forward, calling for the departing elder to stop. The Enforcement Hall elder glanced back over his shoulder, his eyes narrowed in annoyance at the boy's unexpected interruption. A confident smile spread across Chen Qi's lips as he made a decisive gesture, signaling his acceptance of the challenge. Astonishment and alarm were evident on Tian Yan's face as he turned back, a silent plea for Chen Qi to reconsider. Chen Qi faced his master with a resolute gaze, placing a hand on his chest to affirm his decision was necessary and unchangeable. The Enforcement Hall elder burst into mocking laughter, applauding the young man's suicidal courage. Seizing the opportunity for revenge, Zhao Cheng stepped forward and bowed to his superior, volunteering to be the one to crush Chen Qi. Chen Qi, erupting with golden energy, blocked an attack from Zhao Cheng. Zhao Cheng overwhelmed him, delivering a powerful stomp down on the sprawling Chen Qi, shattering the ground. Lying amidst the rubble, Chen Qi realized the immaturity of his practical combat experience. Zhao Cheng sneered, his hand gathering energy to prepare for the finishing blow. In response, Chen Qi reached up from the ground, aiming for a fatal weak point on Zhao Cheng. Despite his opponent's disdain, Chen Qi's hand glided towards its target with unavoidable speed. Zhao Cheng sneered, completely unaware of the danger from the move he deemed useless. Chen Qi's hand suddenly clamped onto Zhao Cheng's lower body, unleashing the forbidden technique, Yin Absorption Hand. Zhao Cheng's confidence shattered, replaced by a look of horror and fury as he realized Chen Qi's intent. Chen Qi smirked victoriously, the energy from the Yin Absorption Hand exploding in his grasp. Zhao Cheng doubled over in extreme pain, his cultivation foundation shaken by the insidious technique. He collapsed to the ground, screaming in despair as his power was drained. From the stands, Tian Yan and the second master watched silently, both astonished by Chen Qi's rapid comprehension of the forbidden technique. The second master couldn't hide his smugness, recognizing his disciple's extraordinary talent for forbidden skills. On the opposite side, the Enforcement Hall elder furiously ordered Bai Yunfei to eliminate Chen Qi at all costs. Without hesitation, Bai Yunfei charged towards Chen Qi, who calmly faced a new battle. Chen Qi gathered his strength, unleashing a treacherous Yin Absorption Hand strike aimed at his opponent. His energy hand clamped tightly onto Bai Yunfei's lower body. Chen Qi froze, stunned, as his attack seemed to have no effect. Bai Yunfei smirked, completely unaffected by the previous move. With a taunt about the difference in cultivation methods, Bai Yunfei delivered a brutal punch to Chen Qi's face. Chen Qi was sent flying, hurtling a long distance. The masters of the old Cripples Institute, including Tian Yan and the third master, cried out in horror as they witnessed the scene. Standing from afar, Zhao Jing coldly ordered his subordinates to kill Chen Qi immediately. Bai Yunfei approached the staggering Chen Qi, preparing to deliver the finishing blow. Without hesitation, Bai Yunfei unleashed a deep red energy punch that pierced through Chen Qi's chest. A subordinate turned back to report to Zhao Jing that the mission was complete as Chen Qi collapsed. Bai Yunfei turned around, but then froze in surprise. He was stunned, to see Chen Qi, despite his severe injuries, still standing firm behind him. Enraged that his target was still alive, Bai Yunfei tensed, preparing for a final attack. The second master raised his severed arm, green energy erupting, issuing a silent command to stop the fight. Zhao Jing turned to face the second master, his eyes full of defiance and disdain for his interference. Bai Yunfei delivered a powerful punch to Chen Qi, causing blood to splatter, confident that he had won. Bai Yunfei stood watching Chen Qi lie motionless on the ground, but Chen Qi slowly struggled to his feet, his defiant gaze denying his opponent's victory. Bai Yunfei was stunned, unable to believe that Chen Qi was still alive after that attack. With a bruise on his cheek, Chen Qi beckoned, signaling for a direct confrontation. Provoked, Bai Yunfei furiously launched a punch straight at Chen Qi's face. Just before the punch connected, a brilliant golden aura erupted from Chen Qi's body. Blocking the attack, Chen Qi realized he had reached the extreme realm of body cultivation, power surging through his body. Bai Yunfei's fist was stopped by an impenetrable wall of golden energy. Chen Qi roared, declaring it was his turn to counterattack. With a powerful spinning kick, Chen Qi sent Bai Yunfei flying into the air. From afar, Zhao Jing was stunned by Chen Qi's unexpected strength. Realizing his talent far exceeded expectations, Tian Yan also observed, his eyes behind the blindfold, revealing admiration as he realized Chen Qi was even more extraordinary than they had imagined. His anger flaring, Zhao Jing pointed at Bai Yunfei, issuing a cruel command: kill Chen Qi at all costs. Receiving the order, Bai Yunfei roared, his body swelling as a surge of dark energy erupted, declaring he would use his strongest state to finish Chen Qi. With savage power, Bai Yunfei descended from above, delivering a destructive punch towards Chen Qi. In his enraged, transformed state, Bai Yunfei unleashed an overwhelming purple energy strike towards Chen Qi. Chen Qi collapsed, coughing up blood at Bai Yunfei's feet, who looked down with absolute disdain. From afar, Zhao Jing smiled triumphantly, certain that victory was in their hands. Despite the perilous situation, Chen Qi turned to the second master, making an unbelievable request in the middle of the battle. The second master was stunned, not understanding why his disciple would need water at this moment. Chen Qi looked up, his eyes full of defiance, signaling that he needed water to drink. The second master's expression shifted from confusion to utter bewilderment at Chen Qi's strange insistence, giving his opponent no chance. Bai Yunfei charged forward, delivering another energy punch to Chen Qi. Chen Qi yelled, urging his master to act quickly before it was too late. Heeding his disciple's words, the second master immediately dashed away like the wind to fulfill the request. In just a moment, the second master returned, carrying a full bucket of water. Meanwhile, Bai Yunfei grabbed Chen Qi by the collar, roaring a final threat. He delivered a brutal kick, sending Chen Qi flying backward. Chen Qi was sent sliding across the ground, creating a deep furrow, stopping right in front of the second master. The second master stood shielding Chen Qi, ordering him to stop the fight to preserve his life. Chen Qi ignored his master's words, his eyes fixed on the bucket of water, believing it was the key to turning the tide. Second master held a large bucket of water while Chen Qi, covered in injuries, greedily buried his face in it to drink. From afar, Zhao Jing observed the strange scene with a skeptical expression, not understanding what was happening. Bai Yunfei, in his muscular state, sneered contemptuously, granting his opponent one last favor. Just a moment later, Chen Qi stood up, his injuries seemingly healed, and his aura completely changed, extending his hand to provoke another fight. Challenged, Bai Yunfei roared in anger and lunged to attack. Chen Qi no longer dodged. He extended his hand to block Bai Yunfei's punch in a dazzling explosion of energy. Chen Qi's entire body erupted with a golden aura more brilliant than ever, his power having been elevated to a new level. Zhao Jing was stunned, realizing that simply by drinking water, Chen Qi's physique had broken through to an unimaginable realm. Facing Bai Yunfei, Chen Qi confidently declared that the real battle was only just beginning. No longer scornful, Bai Yunfei accepted the challenge, deciding to end the match seriously. With astonishing speed, Bai Yunfei suddenly closed in from behind and tightly grabbed Chen Qi's ponytail. With a cruel smile, Bai Yunfei raised his hand, aiming directly at Chen Qi's head to deliver the finishing blow. From the stands, Tian Yan, third master, and fourth master were frozen, their eyes filled with horror and helplessness. Second master cried out his disciple's name in despair, his face contorted with fear. In contrast to the old Remnant Institute's panic, Zhao Jing burst into a satisfied laugh, believing victory was already in his grasp. Completely restrained, Chen Qi could only await Bai Yunfei's attack, as the latter asserted the absolute power disparity between them. Chen Qi smirked, his eyes full of challenge, as if asking, "Is that all?" Bai Yunfei was stunned, unable to believe that his opponent was still standing and able to speak. Without a word of warning, Chen Qi spat a mouthful of water directly into the still stunned Bai Yunfei's face. Bai Yunfei clutched his face and screamed, the unexpected and humiliating attack causing him to completely lose his guard. From afar, Zhao Jing was speechless, completely unprepared for the bizarre turn of events in the match. Seizing the opportunity, Chen Qi lunged forward and delivered a powerful punch, declaring that the real battle had only just begun. After the punch, Chen Qi paused, clutching his head with a discomforted expression, as if the attack also caused a backlash. Zhao Jing gritted his teeth, his gaze shifting from astonishment to a terrifying realization of Chen Qi's monstrous potential. Struggling to his feet, Bai Yunfei scoffed, using a provocative gesture to challenge Chen Qi to attack his defensive cultivation technique. In response to the challenge, Chen Qi delivered a vicious, merciless kick directly to Bai Yunfei's lower body. Chen Qi continued to stomp repeatedly on the same weak point, turning Bai Yunfei's screams into a symphony of pain. Completely defeated, Bai Yunfei cried in despair as the foundation of his cultivation technique was destroyed, alongside the image of a shattered egg. Chen Qi delivered a kick into the air, offering a sarcastic suggestion about the future of his defeated opponent. He turned, looked directly at Zhao Jing, and loudly declared his victory. Asserting his status as an official disciple, Zhao Jing gritted his teeth tightly, his eyes blazing with hatred. An unspoken refusal uttered from his extreme indignation. Tian Yan confronted Zhao Jing, his eyes behind the blindfold seemingly piercing into the opponent, questioning his intention to renege. Zhao Jing turned back, pointed directly at Chen Qi, and declared to Tian Yan that his identity was suspicious, possibly a spy for the demonic cult. To assert his authority, Zhao Jing stepped forward and placed his hand on Chen Qi's shoulder, ordering him to follow for investigation. Second master stepped forward, his eyes sharp, warning Zhao Jing in a low voice not to force him to act. Zhao Jing brushed second master's hand away, loudly asserting the importance of the matter and demanding the masters of the old Remnant Institute to be understanding. A fiery slap landed on Zhao Jing's face. The one who struck was Chen Qi, who showed no fear. Zhao Jing was stunned, clutching his cheek, unable to believe he had just been humiliated by a nameless junior. Chen Qi held out a command medallion, boldly declaring that he entered here openly and honorably, with nothing shady. Zhao Jing stared in astonishment at the Xiangling, questioning Chen Qi about its origin. Tian Yan spoke up, explaining that with the Xiangling, Chen Qi was fully qualified as a disciple, and obstructing him was a violation of the rules. Zhao Jing gritted his teeth, clenched his fists, and defiantly declared that the rules of the enforcement hall were determined by him. A flash of green light appeared. Fourth master struck like lightning, delivering another slap to Zhao Jing's other cheek. Zhao Jing staggered, looking at fourth master in astonishment, not understanding why he was being hit. Fourth master pointed at Zhao Jing, coldly cutting off his words. While reaffirming the fact that Chen Qi possessed the Xiyang Ling, Zhao Jing roared in indignation, pointing at them, mocking that the Xiyang Ling was now just a joke. Fourth master delivered a thunderous slap to Zhao Jing's face, who was shouting that Chen Qi had the Xiyang Ling, having lost all face. Zhao Jing roared, attempting to frame Chen Qi by demanding an investigation into his strange methods. Blood splattered from Zhao Jing's mouth as Fourth Master's slap ended his accusation. With a red bruise imprinted on his cheek, Zhao Jing desperately screamed, trying to convince everyone that he suspected Chen Qi was a spy for the demonic path. In response, Fourth Master said nothing, simply delivering another slap, extinguishing all resistance. Completely subdued, Zhao Jing let out a resentful huff and turned to leave, followed by his trembling subordinates. From behind, Chen Qi watched the enforcement hall group leave, his expression still tense. After they had gone some distance, one of Zhao Jing's subordinates spoke up in confusion, asking why their master had to endure such humiliation. Zhao Jing snapped, ordering his subordinate to shut up, while warning that no one in the Old Remnant Institute could be touched, except for that old man. The subordinate innocently continued to ask why, not understanding why they had to be afraid. With a face etched with horror, Zhao Jing explained that Fourth Master was a madman, capable of killing without following any rules. The subordinate continued to question, reminding Zhao Jing that the enforcement hall was the one representing the rules. Losing all patience, Zhao Jing unleashed his fury on his own subordinate with a fiery slap. He gritted his teeth, clenching his fists in resentment, vowing to make the Old Remnant Institute pay for today's humiliation. Back on the martial stage, Second Master let out a sigh of relief. The storm had finally passed. Second Master coughed violently, the backlash from the forbidden technique tormenting him after the battle. Chen Qi hastily supported Second Master, his face full of worry for his teacher. Third Master explained the severity of the injury, warning of the life-threatening danger due to the misuse of the forbidden technique. Chen Qi desperately sought a solution, unable to accept the worst-case scenario. Tian Yan identified it as a soul injury, revealing the only remedy was the longevity herb in the sect's secret realm. Hearing a glimmer of hope, Chen Qi's eyes became resolute. Determined to find this spiritual medicine, the stream of memories returned to right after the battle, where Third Master declared he would personally impart true forbidden techniques to Chen Qi due to his potential. Chen Qi was astonished by the offer, while the image of Third Master standing on one leg with a crutch affirmed the Master's sacrifice. Second Master, still healthy at this time, explained that the yin absorption hand was just the beginning. The Big Dipper Divine Fist was the unparalleled martial art. He turned to ask Tian Yan and Third Master for their opinions, showing that this was a joint decision of the entire institute. Fourth Master initially showed subtle disapproval, as a final test for his fellow disciples. Returning to reality 7 days later, Chen Qi poured all his strength into practicing the new cultivation technique, striking a palm at a tree trunk. The force of the punch pierced through the tree trunk, creating an energy explosion on the other side, demonstrating the power of the new technique. Third Master observed with his arms crossed, unable to hide his pride in his disciples' extraordinary talent. Finally, all 5 master and disciples gathered around the meal, a cozy scene showing that unity and peace had returned to the Old Remnant Institute. Tian Yan sat before the simple meal, picked up a piece of vegetable with chopsticks, and posed a silent question about the meal's scarcity. Third Master irritably explained that the sect had stopped supplying resources to the Old Remnant Institute a long time ago. With a determined expression, Chen Qi accepted the assigned task, preparing to set off to reclaim what belonged to his institute. As Chen Qi's figure gradually diminished on the road, Third Master watched with eyes that could not hide his worry for his student. Tian Yan reassured his fellow disciple with a confident smile, while the Third Master still stood with his arms crossed, looking doubtful. With a calm gesture, Tian Yan explained that this was a necessary step for Chen Qi to mature and explore the vast world. The Third Master was still worried, hypothesizing that Chen Qi might become a target for others. Tian Yan's train of thought revealed a contingency plan. An image of the glowing Daluo Tian Yin implanted in Chen Qi's back appeared. The scene shifted back to an earlier time, where the second master appeared astonished upon learning that Tian Yan had sacrificed himself to use such a powerful forbidden art. Returning to the conversation, Tian Yan and the second master looked into the distance together, Tian Yan's gaze affirming that Chen Qi was their last hope. Chen Qi was overwhelmed by the majestic sight of the main sect with its islands suspended in midair. He was confused and wary, realizing the place was eerily silent, with no one passing by. Suddenly, a pink-haired female disciple appeared on the deserted path, walking with a confident demeanor, completely unaffected by the silence. To find answers, Chen Qi hastily reached out, trying to call the junior sister back to ask her something. The pink-haired woman startled and turned around, her face flustered and confused by Chen Qi's sudden appearance. Chen Qi cheerfully waved, trying to strike up a conversation with the pink-haired junior sister, who was startled and flustered by his sudden approach. Without a word in response, the pink-haired junior sister immediately turned and fled, leaving Chen Qi staring blankly after her, determined not to give up. Chen Qi chased after her, trying to call her back as she sped up, her face filled with panic. To shake him off, the pink-haired junior sister summoned her flying sword and soared into the sky, leaving Chen Qi desperately reaching out after her. Once at a safe distance in the air, she breathed a sigh of relief, believing she had escaped the stranger. However, a sense of unease made her look back, and her relief immediately turned into astonishment. Chen Qi, riding a large sword, had easily caught up to her, hovering right beside her with a determined expression. He gently landed on her flying sword, inviting her to come with him. Flying over the sect's rooftops, forced into an inescapable situation, the pink-haired junior sister could only lower her head, her cheeks flushed with confusion and embarrassment. To show friendliness, Chen Qi placed his hand on her shoulder, but this action only startled her further. Overwhelmed by fear from the physical contact, she let out a shriek, lost her balance, and fell from her flying sword. Reacting in an instant, Chen Qi swooped down and wrapped his arms around her, preventing her from falling to the ground. Saved in the nick of time. She was still in shock, while Chen Qi reminded her of her immature sword-riding skills. Chen Qi smiled reassuringly, asserting that safety was paramount, while she could only shyly avoid his gaze. In the distance, at a large plaza, a crowd of disciples had gathered, eagerly awaiting the meeting between the sect's important figures. Amidst the crowd, Holy Sun Lu smugly boasted that he himself had invited Goddess Zhang here to collect resources. The surrounding disciples applauded, praising the Holy Sun's ability to approach someone as famously cold and reclusive as her. Holy Sun Lu flashed a triumphant smile, asserting that besides him, no other Holy Sun had ever met Goddess Zhang. At the same time, in the sky, Chen Qi was flying on his sword, standing close behind the pink-haired girl and actively asking for her name. The girl blushed, embarrassed by Chen Qi's sudden closeness. Chen Qi resolutely repeated the question, his gaze not allowing her to evade. Under his persistence, the girl mumbled her name was Jiang Lianyi. Chen Qi smiled, introduced himself, and offered a confident promise of protection. He asked about their arrival time, his gaze directed forward. Just before arriving, Jiang Lianyi unexpectedly took out a pink veil and put it on, surprising Chen Qi. Below, a disciple in the crowd spotted them and shouted that Goddess Zhang had arrived. A hooded disciple squinted upwards, trying to identify who was accompanying her. The crowd buzzed with astonishment, realizing there was a man behind Goddess Jiang on the flying sword. As the two landed in the plaza, their appearance created a stir. The disciples murmured in disbelief, unable to believe that the famously aloof Goddess Zhang was accompanied by a strange man. Amidst the crowd of disciples, Holy Sun Lu excitedly announced to those around him that he had seen Goddess Zhang. Jiang Lianyi's appearance beside Chen Qi immediately stunned him. He realized she was the rumored goddess. Jiang Lianyi quickly put on her veil, nodding coldly to re-establish distance. Holy Sun Lu stepped forward, his questioning gaze fixed directly on Chen Qi, who was accompanying Zhang Lianyi, to quell the curiosity. Zhang Lianyi made a silent, authoritative gesture. Chen Qi glanced at her, surprised by her sudden shift in attitude from friendly to aloof. Facing the crowd, Chen Qi smiled confidently, loudly introducing his name to assert his presence. Holy Sun Lu looked skeptical, questioning the identity of an unknown person like Chen Qi. In the crowd, other disciples began to whisper, speculating about the unusual relationship between Chen Qi and their goddess. To assert his position, Holy Sun Lu pointed at Chen Qi, issuing an undisguised threat. Chen Qi crossed his arms, responding to the threat with a calm but challenging gaze. Provoked, Holy Sun Lu gritted his teeth, clenching his fists, his anger clearly visible on his face. A dignified elder stepped forward, his presence immediately quelling the tense atmosphere. Holy Sun Lu immediately changed his demeanor, bowing respectfully to report that all disciples were present. The elder raised his hand, beginning to announce the rules for distributing cultivation resources to the academies. The fourth elder stood before the crowd, announcing the start of the resource distribution competition for the 3 academies. Omitting the Old Remnant Institute, Chen Qi raised his hand, decisively interrupting the fourth elder from behind. Requesting to ask a question, Chen Qi sharply questioned why 4 resource allocations had been made but no one from the Old Remnant Institute had come to claim them. The fourth elder turned, squinted at Chen Qi, and sarcastically explained that the Old Remnant Institute had no disciples, thus no need for resources. Undeterred, Chen Qi continued to press, hypothesizing whether disciples from the Old Remnant Institute would receive resources if they came. The fourth elder stiffly admitted that if someone came, they could receive them, but immediately dismissed the possibility because the sect forbade the Old Remnant Institute from accepting disciples. Seizing the loophole, Chen Qi flashed a confident smile, puffed out his chest, and solemnly declared himself a disciple of the Old Remnant Institute. Chen Qi's declaration plunged the entire plaza into a deathly silence. The fourth elder and other disciples were all stunned. The silence was quickly broken by jeers and pointing from the crowd, who believed Chen Qi was trying to cheat to seize resources. Chen Qi showed annoyance upon realizing that no one believed his truthful words. Seizing the opportunity, Holy Sun Lu turned to Zhang Lianyi, attempting to discredit Chen Qi by questioning his qualifications. The fourth elder raised his hand, signaling an end to the meaningless arguments and ignoring Chen Qi to begin the competition. With a powerful gesture, the fourth elder summoned a colossal stone mountain, upon which resource tokens hung suspended. He loudly declared the rules. The 10 tokens on the mountain corresponded to all the Old Remnant Institute's resources, and the strongest would claim them. Without hesitation, Chen Qi charged towards the mountain with iron determination, declaring he would personally reclaim what belonged to the Old Remnant Institute. The fourth elder asked Zhang Lianyi about her intention to participate in the upcoming resource competition. Zhang Lianyi closed her eyes, shaking her head decisively, signaling she would not participate. Holy Sun Lu smiled smugly, approached Zhang Lianyi, and declared he also would not participate so he could escort her. He turned back, cast a sharp glance towards Chen Qi, and issued a silent command to his subordinates. As the competition began, the disciples shot like arrows towards the mountain. Only Chen Qi remained still, observing. Suddenly, Chen Qi darted forward, surpassing everyone and snatching a resource token from the cliff face. Immediately, a bun-haired disciple appeared, unleashing an energy kick to knock Chen Qi away and seize the token. Chen Qi turned, his sharp gaze questioning the one who had just launched a sneak attack on him. The bun-haired disciple smirked brazenly, admitting his action and unleashing an energy palm strike directly at Chen Qi. With a mocking smile, Chen Qi easily brushed the attack aside, leaving the token on the cliff as a challenge. From afar, Shengzi Lu sneered contemptuously, thinking Chen Qi was just a coward. The bun-haired disciple smugly reached out, certain that the resource token was his. At that very moment, Chen Qi lunged forward with terrifying speed, delivering a kick straight to the disciple's head. The disciple stumbled back in astonishment, looking up at Chen Qi, who stood beside him with a teasing expression. Chen Qi smiled, his eyes seeming to say, "You play dirty with me. I'll play dirty with you." Provoked by Chen Qi's attitude, the bun-haired disciple charged down the cliff, throwing an angry punch. Chen Qi calmly raised his hand, easily blocking his opponent's attack to the latter's astonishment. The bun-haired disciple tried to pull his hand back, but in vain. His wrist clamped tightly by Chen Qi like an iron vice. His confidence shattered, replaced by a look of panic as he faced Chen Qi's smug smile, responding to the plea sarcastically. Chen Qi used the opponent's own force to throw him down and send him flying. The bun-haired disciple fell straight onto the arena. While Shengzi Lu watched from afar with a scowling face, the fourth elder stroked his beard, a rare smile of appreciation appearing on his lips as he witnessed Chen Qi's talent. Shengzi Lu turned away with a look of disdain, uttering a derogatory remark towards his unconscious subordinate. Without much concern, Chen Qi picked up the first resource token with a triumphant smile. A moment later, he held up the second token, indicating his intention not to stop at just one. Another blue-haired disciple appeared, blocking Chen Qi's path with a stern demeanor. Questioning him about violating the rules, Chen Qi only responded with a challenging question, his gaze unwavering. The blue-haired disciple angrily pointed, demanding Chen Qi hand over a token and leave immediately. Chen Qi smiled provocatively, declaring that all 10 tokens belonged to him, accepting the challenge. The blue-haired disciple channeled fiery red energy around his fist. Preparing for an inevitable battle, Chen Qi stood defiantly, a smirk provoking his unseen attacker with a gesture of invincibility. From the sidelines, other disciples showed shock and disbelief at Chen Qi's audacity, certain that their senior brother, Liu Ming, would crush him. Liu Ming unleashed a powerful punch that exploded on Chen Qi's shoulder. But Chen Qi remained unshaken, his expression calm and unchanged. Utter astonishment was clear on Liu Ming's face. He couldn't believe his full-force attack was ineffective. Chen Qi's entire body erupted in a brilliant golden aura, his physical strength manifesting as a tangible energy shield. Liu Ming recoiled in horror, realizing that Chen Qi had reached the legendary golden body realm. The watching crowd of disciples buzzed with astonished chatter, comparing Chen Qi's realm to Zhang Lianyi's legendary talent. From afar, Shengzi Lu gnashed his teeth in anger as his plan failed, but remained confident that Chen Qi could not obtain all the tokens. In response, Chen Qi lunged forward, delivering a punch enhanced with golden energy straight to Liu Ming's abdomen. The counterattack made Liu Ming cough up blood, pain and dizziness evident on his face. Completely defeated, Liu Ming knelt in supplication, offering his 2 resource tokens as a sign of surrender. Chen Qi snatched the tokens and slapped Liu Ming hard across the face to punish his hypocrisy, raising his total to 4 tokens. A moment later, the skirmish ended. Chen Qi, alone, facing the towering resource mountain. As he ascended, Chen Qi braced against an invisible gravitational force, using his golden body to overcome the challenge and realizing he was ahead of others. However, on a higher rock ledge, another cunning disciple had obtained a token. Smug with his strategy of avoiding conflict, the cunning disciple reached out, a triumphant expression on his face as he was about to claim a resource token. Suddenly, Chen Qi erupted in a golden aura, dashing past to snatch the token right from under his opponent's nose. Overwhelmed by the dazzling light from Chen Qi's golden body, the cunning disciple's face contorted in astonishment, powerlessly watching from below. The cunning disciple roared in anger as Chen Qi, like a golden streak, soared up the mountainside with his spoils. On another mountainside, the purple-haired disciple moved with astonishing speed, skillfully dodging a rain of throwing knives from hidden traps. Confident in his speed, the purple-haired disciple reached for another resource token, certain that no one could keep up with him. Just as his fingers were about to touch the target, a figure flashed past, and the token vanished. leaving the purple-haired disciple stunned. The purple-haired disciple gasped in horror as he saw Chen Qi standing there, covered in throwing knives like a porcupine, but completely unharmed. Chen Qi casually tossed the newly acquired resource token into the air, completely ignoring the presence of the dumbfounded purple-haired disciple. Holding up his spoils, Chen Qi declared he had collected 9 tokens, with only one last one remaining. Chen Qi's absolute power completely shook the purple-haired disciple, admiration and dread evident on his face. The bun-haired disciple hastily reported to Shengzi Lu, his face anxious as he announced that Chen Qi was about to collect all the tokens. Unable to bear it any longer, Shengzi Lu roared a decision, his body erupting in red energy as he shot up to the mountaintop to intervene himself. On the mountaintop, Chen Qi reached for the last resource token, his goal nearing completion. Shengzi Lu suddenly appeared, launching a direct attack to stop Chen Qi at the decisive moment. Chen Qi used his golden body to block Shengzi Lu's energy attack on the mountainside. Other disciples watched from afar, astonished that Shengzi Lu had to personally intervene. With an arrogant expression, Shengzi Lu reached out to seize the last resource token. Looking down on Chen Qi retaliated by unleashing the yin absorption hand, a treacherous grappling technique. Shengzi Lu shrieked in pain, his body convulsing. As Chen Qi's technique took effect, the crowd of disciples was stunned, not understanding what trick Chen Qi had used. Chen Qi held Shengzi Lu tightly with a vicious blow to his lower body. A smug smile on his face, he set a condition, demanding Shengzi Lu hand over the token in exchange for his freedom. Humiliated and in pain, Shengzi Lu gritted his teeth, refusing in tears. Chen Qi tightened his grip, increasing the relentless pressure. Unable to bear it any longer, Shengzi Lu cried out in despair, accepting surrender. The last token was handed to Chen Qi, who had now collected the full set of 10. Released, Shengzi Lu furiously charged to attack Chen Qi, seeking revenge for the humiliation. Having achieved his goal, Chen Qi quickly retreated while Shengzi Lu vented his rage on the ground, creating a deep crater, all witnessed by Jiang Lianyi, erupting in a red energy aura. Shengzi Lu roared a vow of revenge, his hateful gaze fixed on Chen Qi. Humiliated, Shengzi Lu charged to attack, while Chen Qi cleverly hid behind Jiang Lianyi. Anger clouding his reason, Shengzi Lu unleashed a fiery punch straight towards Jiang Lianyi, who stood as an unwilling shield. From behind, Chen Qi placed his hand on her back, preparing for an unexpected counterattack. Shengzi Lu froze, astonished by Chen Qi's seemingly treacherous act towards his companion. The force from the punch was strangely redirected, bouncing back and sending Shengzi Lu himself flying. He fell sprawling on the ground, his face contorted in pain and disbelief. Seizing the opportunity, Chen Qi again hid behind Jiang Lianyi, provoking Shengzi Lu, who was staggering to his feet. Having lost all face, Shengzi Lu roared a desperate challenge, demanding a fair fight. With a mischievous smile, Chen Qi again placed his hand on Jiang Lianyi's back, signaling for a similar maneuver. Jiang Lianyi turned, her eyes full of confusion and surprise at his actions. She suddenly realized Chen Qi's intention and panicked, but it was too late to react. Shengzi Lu's attack was once again redirected through her, creating an even stronger recoil force that sent him flying into the air. Shengzi Lu fell to the ground in a pathetic posture, completely defeated and utterly humiliated. Amidst the silence of the crowd, the fourth elder stepped forward, loudly declaring the contest concluded. Chen Qi held high the 10 resource tokens, his eyes firm as he declared this victory belonged to Lao Kan Yuan. In the courtyard of the Old Cripples Institute, Tian Yan gestured for a group of delivery people to place the resource chests on the ground under the watchful eye of Fourth Master. Second Master and Third Master stepped out, blocking their path and sternly questioning the group. A delivery person hastily explained that they were only here to deliver goods. Standing amidst countless chests, Third Master picked up a resource jar, boasting about the massive quantity, enough for 1,000 people for 5 years. Tian Yan appeared skeptical, thinking this was a mistake, as their institute had been cut off from aid long ago. Second Master and Third Master also agreed in their skepticism, not believing the sect could be so generous. Chen Qi unexpectedly appeared among the chests, boldly declaring that this was no mistake. The four masters turned around in astonishment, simultaneously questioning Chen Qi about the origin of this enormous wealth. Chen Qi smiled confidently, asserting that he was the one who had obtained it all. Tian Yan smiled with satisfaction, showing his appreciation for his disciple's achievement, which far exceeded expectations. Third Master excitedly patted Chen Qi's shoulder, declaring that the Old Cripples Institute had never been so prosperous. 3 days later, Chen Qi walked behind Fourth Master, curiously asking about his actions. Fourth Master gazed into the distance, appearing profoundly philosophical, declaring that he was self-reflecting 3 times a day. Chen Qi cupped his hands, expressing sincere admiration for his master's unceasing cultivation spirit. By the lake, Fourth Master continued to mumble philosophical words, then suddenly asserted to himself, "I am not wrong." After a moment of stunned silence, Chen Qi smiled slyly, seemingly having grasped a valuable lesson. Shen Quan turned back to ask Chen Qi about his cultivation progress. Both suddenly looked up as 2 authoritative figures descended from the sky onto the Old Cripples Institute. Shen Quan appeared surprised, spreading his hands to question why Third Elder and Fourth Elder had come here after decades of absence. The 2 elders landed, explaining that they had come because they heard the Old Cripples Institute had taken in a talented disciple. Chen Qi smiled, innocently cupping his hands to thank Fourth Elder for his praise. Fourth Elder frowned in anger, waving his hand in denial, shouting that it was not a compliment. Shen Quan chuckled gleefully, nodding in sarcastic agreement that Fourth Elder was absolutely right. Fourth Elder grew even more furious, turning to Third Elder to complain about the arrogant attitude of the Old Cripples Institute. Third Elder stepped forward, sternly criticizing Shen Quan for breaking the sect's rules on accepting disciples. Shen Quan merely smirked, nodding in a teasing acknowledgement. Third Elder continued harshly, warning that this matter had caused a stir even among other factions. Shen Quan burst into laughter again, continuing to agree provocatively. Third Elder raised 3 fingers, making an irresistible offer for Chen Qi to leave the Old Cripples Institute and join one of the 3 major academies. Standing opposite the 2 elders, Shen Quan laughed loudly again and nodded in feigned agreement, unable to bear it any longer. Third Elder roared, erupting in a surge of purple energy, questioning if Shen Quan was intentionally provoking him. Witnessing everything, Chen Qi turned away with a hidden smile, realizing his second master had learned Fourth Master's teasing tricks. With a provocative smile, Shen Quan recalled an old victory to infuriate Third Elder. Third Elder suppressed his anger, signaling that he wouldn't stoop to their level, and declared another purpose for this trip. Shen Quan immediately interrupted, raising his hand to signal he didn't want to hear anything from the other party. Completely ignoring him, Third Elder loudly spoke directly about Shen Quan's critical injury. A warning aimed at Chen Qi struck at his weak point. Shen Quan roared in anger, a surge of blue energy erupting around him. Third Elder continued to set the trap, describing the longevity grass in the secret realm as the only salvation for Shen Quan. Shen Quan turned to Chen Qi, firmly rejecting the enemy's words and ordering his disciple not to participate. Having achieved his goal, Third Elder extended a token, officially granting Chen Qi the opportunity to participate in the secret realm trial. With a triumphant smile, Third Elder and Fourth Elder soared into the sky, leaving the Old Cripples Institute. Once in the air, Fourth Elder turned to ask Third Elder with a worried expression about the effectiveness of the plan. Third Elder replied with a sinister smile, confident that his psychological trap had no escape. On the ground, Shen Quan turned back, seriously warning Chen Qi about the deadly conspiracy the elders had just laid out. Chen Qi merely smiled confidently, signaling to his master to be completely at ease. Shen Quan looked doubtful, asking Chen Qi to clearly explain his confidence. Chen Qi cupped his hands, once again reassuring his master that he didn't need to worry about matters of life and death, leaving Shen Quan stunned. After a moment of surprise, Shen Quan burst out laughing, showing amusement at his disciple's audacity, but still raising a hand to instruct him to act cautiously. Shen Quan looked at Chen Qi with a scrutinizing gaze, a silent question about his endurance before imparting the forbidden art. To reassure his master, Chen Qi smiled confidently, clenching his fist to affirm that he could fully bear the burden. Receiving the assurance, Shen Quan decided to lead Chen Qi away to begin imparting his ultimate technique, Demon Double Evil Fist. 3 days later, Tian Yan watched Chen Qi practicing from a distance, then turned to Shen Quan with a disapproving expression about this haste. Shen Quan replied with a resolute gaze, explaining that his time was running out. Tian Yan's eyes lowered with deep concern, inquiring about his senior brother's worsening injury. Shen Quan admitted his condition was worse than people thought, his eyes revealing urgency as time was running out. Approaching his disciple, Shen Quan inquired about Chen Qi's practice progress. Chen Qi stood up with a frustrated expression, admitting that he couldn't grasp the core principles of the cultivation method. Shen Quan looked puzzled, placing a hand on his chin, pondering the difference given how easily Chen Qi had learned previous forbidden arts. To demonstrate directly, Shen Quan activated his cultivation, a golden aura enveloping his body. Suddenly, the energy flow became chaotic, and Shen Quan painfully coughed up a mouthful of blood due to backlash. Chen Qi rushed forward in a panic, supporting his staggering master with a worried expression. Brushing aside his disciple's concern, Shen Quan wiped the blood from his lips, his gaze still firm, ready to demonstrate again. Chen Qi firmly stopped his master, his eyes filled with worry, yet also resolve, asking him to rest. Watching his masters retreating back, Chen Qi realized the severity of the injury, strengthening his determination to comprehend it on his own. Chen Qi told himself that his biggest problem when practicing forbidden arts was due to poor aptitude, not physical constitution. With a disappointed but resolute expression, he admitted his talent was insufficient to practice such a powerful cultivation method. An idea flashed in his mind. Chen Qi realized the essence of forbidden arts was taking shortcuts, and wondered if there was a forbidden art to increase aptitude. With a new goal, he immediately ran off to seek answers from his masters. Tian Yan sternly warned Chen Qi about the madness of that idea, emphasizing that the consequence would be unavoidable, death. Undeterred, Chen Qi earnestly asked again, hoping for even the slightest glimmer of hope. After a moment of silence, Tian Yan pointed him in a direction, suggesting that Fourth Master might have research on this matter. Chen Qi clenched his fists, determined to ask all the masters until he found an answer. Third Master happily confirmed that Fourth Master had indeed researched this matter before, though he wasn't sure if he still remembered. Watching his masters retreating back, Chen Qi didn't hesitate, immediately setting off to find Fourth Master. He found Fourth Master squatting in the courtyard, drawing scribbles on the ground with a highly focused expression using a branch. Fourth Master looked up, proudly announcing a silly discovery that people who eat eggs will eat more eggs than those who don't, leaving Chen Qi dumbfounded. To curry favor with his master, Chen Qi quickly switched to flattery mode, giving a thumbs up and praising his wisdom. Flattered, Fourth Master gestured for Chen Qi to get straight to the point. Chen Qi frankly stated his desire to learn a forbidden art that would enhance his aptitude, secretly thinking that small talk was the best way to communicate with this master. Fourth Master placed a hand on his forehead, his expression pensive, trying to search his memory for such a cultivation method. With a serious expression, Chen Qi asked Fourth Master to recount what he remembered about the forbidden technique. In response, Fourth Master merely knelt, clutching his head in confusion and despair. He raised a hand to his forehead, explaining miserably that his silence was because there was truly nothing to say. Chen Qi gently suggested that perhaps his esteemed master had forgotten. Fourth Master immediately retorted, insisting that he remembered but just couldn't recall it at that moment. Chen Qi was utterly helpless, sweat pouring down his face as he faced his master's absent-mindedness. Disappointed, Chen Qi turned and left, his mind still searching for a solution. He walked out of Fourth Master's quarters, determined to find a way to help him. standing alone. Chen Qi clutched the sunset token, steeling himself for the upcoming secret realm trial. When he returned to the courtyard, Second Master and Tian Yan were already waiting. Calling his name, Second Master directly asked about the outcome of the conversation, his eyes awaiting an answer. Chen Qi bowed his head, sadly announcing that Fourth Master couldn't recall anything. Second Master nodded understandingly, explaining that due to a brain injury, Fourth Master needed a special stimulus to rekindle his memories. A mischievous glint appeared in Chen Qi's eyes as he asked again about the method of stimulation. Second Master began recounting the past, revealing that Fourth Master in his youth once believed his aptitude was unparalleled. To help Chen Qi, Second Master gave him an old book, saying it recorded Fourth Master's past and might be the key to solving the problem. Chen Qi held the book and the secret realm token, a cunning smile on his face as he already had his own plan. Tian Yan suddenly appeared, his stern gaze fixed on the token in the disciple's hand. With a mischievous expression, Chen Qi winked and offered an explanation for his curiosity. Tian Yan was not convinced, decisively extending his hand and ordering Chen Qi to hand over the token. Chen Qi feigned confusion, trying to make excuses that he only wanted to keep it as a memento. Tian Yan's patience ran out. He repeated the command with a gesture that allowed no refusal. Reluctantly, Chen Qi handed over the token and tried to justify his actions. Without a word of warning, Tian Yan used his strength to crush the token in his palm. Chen Qi was stunned, only able to stare blankly as the fragments of opportunity fell to the ground. Tian Yan declared firmly that Chen Qi's path to participating in the trial had been completely blocked. As Chen Qi turned and walked away, Shen Quan and Tian Yan stood behind him, their gazes affirming a promise of unconditional protection. Meanwhile, in a dark forest, the demonic lady unleashed a massive surge of purple energy after a long period of secluded cultivation. She stood up, savoring the feeling of her power having soared to a new realm. Her two subordinates simultaneously bowed, respectfully congratulating their master on her breakthrough. The demonic lady turned away, her gaze distant as she inquired about Chen Qi's situation. A subordinate reported gravely that Chen Qi was isolated and facing many enemies at the old Cripples Institute. The demonic lady stood atop the mountain, issuing an undeniable command to her two subordinates kneeling at her feet to protect a precious person. At the same time, elsewhere, a surge of blue energy tore through space, aiming directly at the demonic lady who was suspended amidst her own purple demonic aura. The demonic lady remained unfazed by the attack, realizing her aura had been exposed during her breakthrough, but her eyes gleamed with absolute confidence. Meanwhile, at the peaceful old Cripples Institute, a quiet atmosphere enveloped the area. Inside, Chen Qi intently read a book, his brow slightly furrowed as he learned about Fourth Master's illustrious past. With renewed determination, he closed the book and stood up, intending to take it to try a method to help his master recover. Suddenly, a strange figure burst into the room. Chen Qi reacted immediately, grabbing the intruder's collar. Chen Qi froze for a moment, questioning the stranger with a wary gaze. Without explanation, he mercilessly slammed the intruder to the floor. Chen Qi's eyes widened in surprise, seemingly realizing he had overreacted towards a weak individual. The stranger writhed on the floor, coughing up a mouthful of blood, a sign of a severe pre-existing injury. Chen Qi recoiled in alarm, hastily asking the person to get up, not expecting such consequences from a light throw. The stranger, identifying himself as Zhao Huohuo, looked up with a pained expression, recounting how he had been framed and begging for refuge. Chen Qi raised his hand with a decisive gesture, explaining that this was the old Cripples Institute, a place even more miserable than his current situation. Just then, a group of aggressive pursuers burst through the door, pointing directly at Zhao Huohuo with the intention of apprehending him. Zhao Huohuo sat slumped on the ground, his eyes filled with despair as he realized the end had come. Zhao Huohuo grabbed Chen Qi's clothes, desperately pleading for protection and vowing lifelong loyalty. Chen Qi looked annoyed, not particularly impressed by the stranger's theatrics. The pursuers rushed forward, roughly ordering Xiao Huohuo to follow them to be spared by the Holy Sun. Chen Qi decisively raised his hand in refusal, pushing Xiao Huohuo away and clearly indicating he wanted no part in the trouble. As Chen Qi turned to leave, Xiao Huohuo cried out in despair about his ruined genius fate. The leader of the pursuers pointed, ordering his companions to capture Xiao Huohuo at all costs. Xiao Huohuo bowed his head, beginning to recount tragically the series of misfortunes in his life. Chen Qi, who was about to step inside, suddenly paused when he heard a familiar detail in the story. In a fit of indignation, Xiao Huohuo continued to wail about having his opportunities stolen and being jilted by his fiancée. Chen Qi turned back, his face incredulous as he realized Xiao Huohuo's story perfectly matched the archetype of a typical protagonist. Losing patience, one of the pursuers lunged forward to grab Xiao Huohuo and drag him away. Chen Qi unexpectedly intervened, using one hand to block the pursuer's attack. With a simple twist of his hand, Chen Qi made the attacker scream in pain as his wrist was broken. Chen Qi delivered a powerful, sweeping kick, easily sending all three pursuers flying. After dealing with the trouble, Chen Qi crossed his arms and looked at Xiao Huohuo with a cunning expression. Asking a probing question, Xiao Huohuo, still stunned by Chen Qi's power, stared blankly, not understanding the meaning of his question. Chen Qi smiled cunningly, listing all of Xiao Huohuo's tragedies, as if reading from a book, posing a rhetorical question full of hidden meaning. Xiao Huohuo was dumbfounded, his face contorted in extreme astonishment, stammering how the other person knew. Without giving Xiao Huohuo time to compose himself, Chen Qi stepped closer, his sharp gaze piercing into his panic, continuing to reveal details only an insider would know. Completely cornered, Xiao Huohuo pointed at Chen Qi, the fear in his eyes turning into a desperate question. Chen Qi paused for a moment, his eyes reflecting contemplation as he realized Xiao Huohuo's story perfectly matched the archetype of a fated protagonist. Zhou Lei, the leader of the pursuers, pointed directly at Chen Qi's face, growling a threat for daring to interfere with the affairs of the Fire Worship Institute. Chen Qi's gaze turned cold, annoyance clearly visible as his fun in studying the protagonist was interrupted by a mediocre individual. Facing the threat, Chen Qi stood still, casually using his face to block Zhou Lei's punch, his eyes completely ignoring his existence. Realizing the danger, Xiao Huohuo shouted a warning about Zhou Lei's true identity. Humiliated, Zhou Lei roared and threw a full-force punch, but Chen Qi was ready, his hand moving in a strange trajectory to unleash the soul-devouring hand. Xiao Huohuo gasped in astonishment, unable to believe the type of cultivation technique Chen Qi was using. Chen Qi easily seized Zhou Lei, lifting him up while the two remaining subordinates frantically rushed to his aid. With a cruel smile, Chen Qi delivered a vicious blow to Zhou Lei's lower body. A crisp snap echoed, ending all his resistance. Contrary to horror, Xiao Huohuo's eyes lit up with excitement and admiration at Chen Qi's ruthlessness. Still holding Zhou Lei as a shield, Chen Qi unleashed a palm strike that pierced through his body, aiming directly at the charging subordinate. The mountain-piercing attack sent both remaining subordinates flying, swiftly ending the confrontation. Zhou Lei writhed on the ground, crying in defeat and pain. Chen Qi turned and walked away, gesturing for Xiao Huohuo to follow, while the latter watched with a confused expression. Xiao Huohuo pleaded, asking if the old Cripples Institute would accept him, but Chen Qi impatiently waved his hand. Chen Qi stopped, stating that he needed to consult with his masters first, which sparked a glimmer of hope in Xiao Huohuo. In the courtyard of the old Cripples Institute, Chen Qi and his masters sat down to eat, while Xiao Huohuo stood to the side with a worried expression. Ignored, Xiao Huohuo desperately spoke up, begging them not to eat so loudly while he was worried. Xiao Huohuo tried to call Chen Qi's name for help, but both Chen Qi and Tian Yan were focused on their rice bowls, completely oblivious. Chen Qi looked up and turned to ask Tian Yan, who was smiling mysteriously, for his opinion. Tian Yan countered Chen Qi's question, asking him to explain why he wanted to keep Xiao Huohuo. Chen Qi turned to Xiao Huohuo, shifting the burden of explanation to him. Xiao Huohuo frantically recounted his situation, stating that he was being hunted by the Holy Son of the Fire Worship Institute and had nowhere left to go. The fourth master coldly slurped a mouthful of soup and then offered a cruel piece of advice, telling him to just go die, which left Xiao Huohuo stunned. Chen Qi secretly admired him, realizing that the fourth master sometimes spoke very profound and blunt words. Chen Qi posed the crucial question, demanding Xiao Huohuo prove his worth to the Old Cripples Institute, while the latter bowed his head, admitting his cultivation had been crippled. Regaining his composure, Xiao Huohuo raised his head and solemnly swore that he would become a great cultivator to repay their kindness. Tian Yan lightly flicked his chopsticks, and an invisible stream of energy shot out, sending Xiao Huohuo flying. A silent affirmation of his current uselessness, Chen Qi turned towards Tian Yan, his eyes pleading, and presented his argument to persuade his master to keep Xiao Huohuo. Shen Quan turned back, his sharp gaze fixed on Chen Qi, posing a challenging question about Xiao Huohuo's worth compared to Chen Qi himself. Chen Qi puffed out his chest smugly, while Xiao Huohuo huddled in a corner with a gloomy expression. Realizing he was being exploited, the fourth master decisively placed his bowl on the table and then turned to leave, gesturing to hand over the cleanup to the others. One by one, the third master, Tian Yan, and Shen Quan also stood up and left the dining table, leaving Chen Qi and Xiao Huohuo alone. Xiao Huohuo turned to Chen Qi with a bewildered expression, while Chen Qi smiled reassuringly, gesturing that he could stay. Xiao Huohuo clasped his hands and bowed his head, his face filled with immense gratitude for Chen Qi's kindness. Chen Qi pointed towards the messy pile of dishes with a triumphant smile, while Xiao Huohuo froze as he realized his new role. Chen Qi extended his hand, officially declaring Xiao Huohuo the new chore disciple of the Old Cripples Institute. Xiao Huohuo stood watching Chen Qi's retreating back, his shoulders slumped in utter disappointment. He bowed his head, lost in deep thought, seemingly seeking inner guidance. Xiao Huohuo raised his head, clenched his fists, his eyes burning with determination, steeling himself to face the challenge. Chen Qi stood with his arms crossed, observing with a challenging look, while Xiao Huohuo clutched his chest, his body writhing in pain as he tried to circulate his energy. Despite the pain, Xiao Huohuo strained, and a faint yellow energy surged around him. The energy dissipated, and Xiao Huohuo coughed up a mouthful of blood, his body unable to endure it any longer. Chen Qi raised a finger, issuing a warning after witnessing Xiao Huohuo's failure. Zhou Lei gritted his teeth, unable to accept the fact that Chen Qi could cultivate forbidden arts without harm, doubting his own talent. He stared at Chen Qi, who stood there with no signs of backlash, a perplexing and terrifying truth. Another disciple observed from afar, stroking his chin thoughtfully as he realized Chen Qi's talent far surpassed common understanding. That disciple approached, striking up a conversation with Chen Qi with an admiring expression. The disciple's attitude immediately shifted to flattery, using complimentary words to acknowledge Chen Qi's superiority. Chen Qi confidently asserted that he had mastered the forbidden arts, but then showed annoyance because his master had destroyed his token for the Mystic Realm trial. At the same time, within the majestic Immortal Institute, another important discussion was taking place. Institute head Shi Wucheng ordered his subordinate, requesting the Holy Son of the Institute be summoned immediately. A young disciple with ash blonde hair entered the grand hall, respectfully presenting himself before Shi Wucheng. Shi Wucheng looked directly at the Holy Son, questioning his preparation and confidence for the upcoming Mystic Realm trial. The Holy Son asserted that he feared no one, as long as Zhang Lianyi did not participate, revealing the sole weakness in his psyche. Igzi Wucheng sighed, realizing that the obsession with Zhang Lianyi had become a heart demon hindering his disciple's path. To bolster the Holy Son's strength, Shi Wucheng bestowed upon him a spiritual artifact in the shape of a candle lamp emitting a brilliant golden light. The Holy Sun joyfully received the three-core divine lamp, one of the Immortal Institute's most precious treasures. Xie Wuchang gave his final instruction, advising the Holy Sun to use this spiritual artifact in the most perilous moments. Equipped with the treasure, the Holy Sun flashed an arrogant smile. He now believed that even Zhang Lianyi was no longer his match. Xie Wuchang issued a strict warning, permitting only one core of the divine lamp to be activated to avoid unpredictable consequences. His subordinate expressed concern, stating that Holy Sun Yu Tian was too arrogant and unworthy of such an important task. Xie Wuchang dismissed it, asserting that Yu Tian still had exploitable value and would certainly enter the abyssal land. The subordinate looked horrified upon hearing that dangerous place name, fearing for Yu Tian's life. Xie Wuchang flashed a sinister smile, declaring that Yu Tian's death was irrelevant as long as it brought benefits, for only his power reigned supreme. The subordinate bowed his head, still looking worried, contemplating the possibility of Yu Tian acting recklessly in desperation. Xie Wuchang touched his chin with a smug expression, signaling that everything was within his plan. The next day, Chen Qi walked with a determined expression, intending to find the fourth elder to request another token for the Mystic Realm trial. The third master suddenly appeared at the gate, blocking his path and questioning Chen Qi's intentions. Chen Qi turned back, forcing a smile, trying to conceal his plan by lying that he was just taking a stroll. The third master sternly relayed the words of the other masters, requesting Chen Qi to stay and cultivate to avoid being targeted on this chaotic day. Realizing his plan had been exposed, Chen Qi turned and walked away, his face clearly showing disappointment. Inside the house, Chen Qi was stunned to see Zhao Huohuo sitting at the dining table, holding a trial token. Zhao Huohuo smiled, inviting Chen Qi to eat, boasting that he had eaten 5 bowls of spiritual rice because it was so delicious. Chen Qi took the token from Zhao Huohuo's hand, his face full of skepticism, questioning how he had obtained it. Zhao Huohuo puffed out his chest proudly, boasting about his genius status at the Immortal Institute and claiming that having a token was a given. Chen Qi asked Zhao Huohuo if his trial token could be used by others. Zhao Huohuo raised a finger, explaining that the token was only for the owner and at most one follower. With a sly smile, Chen Qi pointed to himself, unilaterally deciding he would be that follower. Zhao Huohuo crossed his arms, smugly refusing the request, citing his severe injuries as a reason he couldn't go. Losing patience, Chen Qi grabbed Zhao Huohuo by the collar, refuting his lie by pointing out his astonishing appetite. Outside, Chen Qi agreed to help Zhao Huohuo retrieve his lost supreme bone as a condition for him to come along. Zhao Huohuo frantically waved his hand again, arguing that the mystic realm was a place for holy sons and holy maidens, and they wouldn't stand a chance. Chen Qi erupted with a brilliant golden energy, its terrifying pressure blowing Zhao Huohuo away as a final warning. He maintained the fearsome energy, his gaze coldly fixed on Zhao Huohuo, who lay sprawled on the ground, completely subdued. Zhao Huohuo hastily raised his hands in surrender, stammering his agreement to go anywhere. Chen Qi smiled contentedly, raising his hand as if preparing to bestow a reward upon his junior brother. A powerful golden energy blast struck Zhao Huohuo directly, making him scream in astonishment. However, the energy merely enveloped his body harmlessly, causing no damage whatsoever. Zhao Huohuo sat up abruptly, staring blankly at his completely unharmed body. Chen Qi raised a finger, smugly explaining that it was just a harmless illusion used to scare people, which left Zhao Huohuo utterly speechless. A young disciple with a brown topknot shouted as he crushed a golden token in his hand. A colossal energy gate, filled with dark aura and edged with golden flames, appeared in a field, overshadowing 2 small figures below. With a determined expression, Chen Qi led the hesitant Zhao Huohuo forward, signaling for them to set off. The 2 young individuals stood firm before a colossal, fiery energy hand descending from the sky. From a distance, the third master turned to Tian Yan, his gaze questioning why he allowed their disciple to go. Tian Yan calmly explained his reasons to the worried third master, justifying his decision not to intervene a third time. As Tian Yan spoke, the scene shifted to an iconic image of Chen Qi standing firm amidst a vortex of golden energy, illustrating his unwavering Tao heart. Tian Yan concluded his explanation, believing this trial was necessary for Chen Qi's growth and to preserve his rare, fearless will. The scene shifted to a vast land under the dawn sky. Marking the beginning of the trial, Chen Qi and Xiao Huo arrived at a colossal plaza, looking down at a crowd of disciples gathered for the event. At the same time, the third elder and fourth elder stood waiting, the third elder scoffing that Chen Qi had not dared to come. In another area, Holy Son Yu Tian, with a smug expression, declared to his subordinates that he would surely seize the greatest fortuitous encounter. The fourth elder raised his hand, officially opening the colossal secret realm gate, signaling the start of the trial. Just then, Chen Qi and Xiao Huo rushed from afar, flying straight towards the newly opened teleportation gate. The third elder and fourth elder turned around, their expressions shifting from complacency to utter astonishment at Chen Qi's unexpected appearance. Yu Tian saw Chen Qi, and Xiao Huo flashed a disdainful smile and mocked his opponent's presence. In the sky, the third elder and fourth elder hovered, drawing the attention of all the disciples gathered below. The fourth elder gestured towards Chen Qi, deliberately announcing to all participants that a disciple from the Old Cripples Institute would be joining the trial. Immediately, the crowd of disciples reacted fiercely, murmurs and hostile gazes all directed at Chen Qi. Viewing his presence as an insult, a worried brown-haired female disciple whispered to Chen Qi, advising him to retreat as the situation was clearly a deadly trap. Ignoring the warning, Chen Qi cheerfully stepped out and waved to the crowd, while pointing at the panicked Xiao Huo and introducing him as a new member. Chen Qi unexpectedly pulled out a loudspeaker, shouting arrogant and provocative words, but impersonating Xiao Huo as if he were the speaker. The provocation immediately took effect, causing the entire crowd, led by Yu Tian, to erupt in fury and direct their hostility toward Xiao Huo. After causing chaos, Chen Qi turned back with a satisfied expression, while Xiao Huo was still stunned by what had just happened, unjustly turned into a common target. Xiao Huo burst into tears, in despair, realizing he had been trapped by Chen Qi with no way out. Chen Qi placed a hand on Xiao Huo's shoulder, using his firm gaze to reassure and persuade his panicked junior brother not to give up. Encouraged by Chen Qi's words, Xiao Huo wiped away his tears, nodded decisively, and decided to stay and fight alongside his senior brother. Yu Tian turned back to glare at Chen Qi one last time, uttering a threat that the secret realm would be his burial ground. Before rushing into the teleportation gate, the other disciples also flew into the teleportation gate one after another, not forgetting to shout threats aimed at Xiao Huo. The worried female disciple remained behind, her eyes filled with anxiety as she watched Chen Qi and Xiao Huo prepare to face the dangerous trial. Chen Qi suddenly turned around, his gaze sharp, as if sensing an approaching presence. Xiao Huo, oblivious, turned to ask with a bewildered expression. A delighted smile spread across Chen Qi's face as he saw Jiang Lianyi flying towards the teleportation gate. Xiao Huo cried out in astonishment as he recognized the newcomer as goddess Jiang Lianyi, a renowned and aloof figure. Without hesitation, Chen Qi rushed after her, grabbed the astonished Xiao Huo's hand, and intimately called out to Jiang Lianyi. Xiao Huo was utterly stunned by Chen Qi's audacity in daring to call such a prominent figure junior sister. Jiang Lianyi glanced back slightly, seemingly having heard Chen Qi's call. Both quickly flew into the energy vortex of the teleportation gate, entering the secret realm together. From afar, the third elder and fourth elder observed with furrowed brows. Appearing suspicious, and assuming Chen Qi was merely trying to cling to someone famous. The third elder's expression darkened, a clear premonition of ill omen regarding Chen Qi's participation. The scenery changed, and all three appeared in a dense forest within the secret realm. Xiao Huohuo whispered to Chen Qi with a worried expression, still reeling from his relationship with Zhang Lianyi. Ignoring Xiao Huohu, Chen Qi approached Zhang Lianyi, naturally patted her shoulder, and grinned as if they were old friends. Zhang Lianyi flinched, brushed Chen Qi's hand away, and coldly denied any close relationship. Chen Qi was unfazed. He smirked slyly and offered a brazen argument about how they had become closer.